Hello, everybody. We're back. We apologize for that short little outage, and we hope that this wasn't a big disruption to your viewing experience. But we just concluded the first series. Thank God that this didn't happen while we were actually in the middle of the game, because I didn't want to miss any of that action. But if we swap on over and we think about how the other matches are going, do we have any news about how the other best out of three is currently going?
Yeah, we'll try to get
Does
some
anybody know?
updates as this is going through. We still have we just saw the Coach Bubbles with Amaz and Coach Darkness with Taya, and we have Scout who's coaching Trump and Flake who's coaching AliasV. So I'm kind of wondering what these two are looking like right now. I took a peek over at the Flake and AliasV side of things earlier, and they kind of had a very interesting physical take for the day that I'm going to be kind of curious to see more of on this one. Spoos, what did you enjoy most about our previous matchup, and then what are you looking forward to mostly today?
What I enjoyed and what I was surprised of how well both players played. I mean, sure, they had some coaches besides him, but the short time they had to prefer all this, they played it really well. They knew how to, when they would need to trade, when they need to attack phase, which unit might be good in which situation. And I was really surprised how close the series was. And as you said earlier, in the end, it was just who's going first and draws who wins the series.
Yeah, I mean, if we talk about that last match, I don't think there was anything Tia could do there. I mean, she just got outdrawn, and that happens sometimes in card games. Now, I am queuing up, and there's currently not an active game going in between the other matchups, so they are in between games at the moment. But once the next match starts, we'll definitely jump on in. But let's talk about the decks that these guys were bringing. It looks like they basically both brought Alpine, then it was Brit Control, and then it was Bolster the Ranks. Spoos, talk us a little bit through kind of the core concept of Bolster the Ranks so that some of our newer viewers might understand how that deck is built.
Yeah, also the ranks decks usually play US main faction with Germany ally, because both have, for USA you have the bolster. If you don't play USA, you cannot play bolster. That's the logical part. But what you want to play that bolster on is units that cannot be targeted by orders. And US is having the M4A1 for that, and Germany is having the Panther G for this. Two big units with big operation costs that cannot be targeted with orders. So your opponent has to trade units into this. Once this is in the front line, it's very hard for your opponent to get rid of it. And that's what the strategy is about. Try to access early board control, and then drop these big units, play bolster on them, go to the front line. If you're lucky enough to find a German guy that gives fury to a unit, play this one, double attack one turn with 0 operation cost, boom, GG, over and out.
That's a pretty straightforward explanation of it. I encountered like some ideas of bolster earlier this week when I was trying to just get some games going and play a bit myself, and I encountered a strategy that is trying to this was Soviet as main nation, and it's trying to stall your opponent's board for as long as possible, and then at the end of the game you play a Katyusha, you give it fury, and then you boost its attack a bunch with a card that says this unit's going to die in a turn, and then they wipe you out in one hit. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so powerful. And so I had to completely adjust my deck to include 2 cards that were meant specifically to fight that strategy. And they're cards I didn't necessarily want in my deck that much.
Yeah.
But I needed to fight that strategy specifically. But even one of the opponents I played, because I had played them twice in the same hour, when they saw what my counterplay was, they established counterplay to that as well. And I was like, I can't believe this deck can handle that. This is crazy. And it's like, it reminded me of like the bolster concept I had at the start. And I was like, I got to figure out how to build this deck. This deck is so strong. It was just like such a cool Soviet deck where it's like the card that sacrifices your own board to increase all of your opposing operation costs.
Scorched Earth, yeah.
Yes, Scorched Earth. And the way that I was trying to fight that was just go, okay, well, I guess my units cost a lot to operate. And I'm just like, hit for 2, hit for 3, go. that was how I was trying to fight it. And honestly, it was working pretty well. But they are able to dig through that deck very quickly. Holy smokes, is that deck powerful.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about innovation and kind of responding to meta changes. I mean, the patch just recently hit just a few days ago, and that changed some things with Alpine, right? So now the obese, the artillery Alpine, it makes it so that your Alpine units can move and attack within the same turn. So you're able to establish them in the backline, and then all of a sudden, you know, unleash this army. And I was like, oh my god, this is going to be absolutely broken. So I start queuing up, and it's in game number 2 on the ladder where I just run into a hard counter. And, you know, it was one of our top players, and he was playing a deck that I'd never seen before, which was basically Soviet arty in the back line, and then a whole bunch of Japanese infantry in the front line. And the concept was just like, I just want to eat up attacks and stuff from you in the front line while I establish my arty back line. And then once you have your kind of big boy Alpine units, I just drop a Eura, trade everything out, and dominate the board and rain kind of hellfire down as you try and march across the battlefield, establishing your position. And I was so impressed because, you know, that deck became popular, like really popular. And then like 4 hours later, there was a new deck that countered it. And I mean, it doesn't do good against a whole lot of other decks, so it's not, you know, really well tuned, but the core concept is there, and it just wrecks Alpine, right?
The good old internet, adapting to strategy within 4 hours.
Yes, that's definitely pretty much it. So we're just currently waiting to jump on into the next game, and we're going to be next. We're going to be taking a look at Trump versus AliasV, and they're going to be. They're basically making some deck changes right now before the next match. So for anybody that is curious, this is a very relaxed event. We are here to kind of just have fun. There's not a whole host of you know, open deck lists and bans and all that kind of stuff. These players are all having fun here today. So let's jump on into the match here in a few seconds once our main stage is ready. We need to change up the names, but we are in the game, and it's going to be Trump playing Japanese, probably Japanese aggro, or this could be Japanese resistance and pin. Oh.
So with Spooz's description earlier on Scout and my knowledge of Trump and him kind of enjoying playing Mimi decks here, Spooz, yeah. I'm going to guess that this is some sort of crazy, wacky strategy that we have never seen before.
I don't expect Jaggro here. And also, because in the community, resistance is not really a strategy that the players enjoy. So I don't think the Scout is bringing a Japan resistance deck here. It is... Scout has several Japan OTK decks. One of these might be... I don't know. Let's see the first cards, and then I can maybe find out what Trump is trying to do here. But I expect some weird stuff. Yeah, look at this.
Well, I see Fortification, and that's already one of those cards where, you know, you're trying to take this game long. Plus 7 defense to the headquarters. That's it.
That's the long-range recon. Another heal
Pay
card.
credits, get money, get HQ HP.
We're on AliasV's side. You can see Coach Flake sitting right there next to her. Both of them proud Canadian players. And very much also with a bunch of Canadian memes that are stored up in those two brains as well. Lots of really witty comments coming out of this pair, and it's just one I love to hear the two of these talk, because they just, my gosh, they just get it.
I mean, maybe we can hear their audio for a little bit. I don't know if that's possible. That should be possible.
Actually, the deck that both of them are playing, I saw them creating this on stream while training, and it is a German-Britain countermeasure deck, relying on the 87th Grenadiers there. It are getting +2/+2 whenever a countermeasure is triggered.
Yeah,
and
yeah, the marathon that we went through earlier, just to
I'm not sure how it will play out against Trump's deck here. Good thing is that they're having a lot of cards in their hand, so not really sure what Trump's strategy is so far. It might be just...
there's a National Fire Service. It is definitely a meme strategy.
But what is the win condition? That's always the hardest thing to figure out when Scout is playing a deck. How is he winning the game? And then suddenly, big, all the pieces come together, and
now we gotta be more aggressive for them.
Yeah, let's listen in. Let's listen in a little bit to Alias and Flake there.
Not me, bro.
I think we're gonna have to do that Blackwatch thing on them again, because that was actually quite effective against them. That was the only time. Like we had a chance to win that game, but
Yeah.
Ooh. Not sure if I agree with that.
Teleport.
C4 going
That's
to
what I'm
the
gonna
front
call it.
line there.
move our dude forward and play.
But I think they expect something else than Trump is
Let's play.
actually bringing.
No, doubting is not good right
I
now.
think
is
they
it?
expect Japan aggro.
It
But
might be.
It would
Yeah,
be a better
okay.
idea to guard the HQ against these big blitz fighters.
My dog has fallen asleep. I'm sorry. This is not more entertaining.
I know,
Now we got
right?
a long-range
They
recon.
won't play units. What,
Doubting
is this,
system,
what are we
though.
supposed to do?
It's foiling that
Boogie.
plan.
But yeah, Trump is sitting on a comfortable amount of health here with 27. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, long range recon is one of those cards that I've always been kind of impressed with in general, but it's got to be like the right spot for it. It feels like one of those cards where like if you're in the right metagame spot, that long range recon just suddenly becomes like an extremely powerful card, but it has to be in the right spot. And so that's kind of one of the things that I do like about the the tech choices that are involved in this game is that it does need to be in the right spot in order for it to like hit its maximum capacity. But when you're in the right spot, it's just like, oh my gosh, how do I win? Like if this is against like a Commonwealth deck, let's say like the Commonwealth is a common strategy in the meta game at that point, suddenly long range recon and fortification feel like two massive counterplays to what your deck is trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at these two hands right now, and I think I can pretty safely say that these are two hands that we have never seen anything even remotely close to this hand composition on a cards broadcast before. This is some next level deck building that's coming in, and I so appreciate AliasV and Flake having fun with it and building their kind of entertaining little countermeasure deck. But unfortunately for them, they're playing into Trump and Scout, and normally Scout doesn't put a whole lot of units in his decks. You know, normally he just kind of lets it.
Yeah, and that's what they have good answers for, right? With all these countermeasures, airstrike, double night hunters,
envelop, right?
To the last man, destroy all units. Like just everything in their deck is meant to stop your opponent from having units. It's like, look, if I'm not going to play units and you're not going to play them either.
His hand. Look at this.
Now, you know, Trump surely understands what is going on, right? I mean, they just floated 6 credits. So for Trump, it looks like they still have 6 credits left. They know that there are some countermeasures waiting on the other side. So they're going to pick their spots for when they want to drop units instead of just running into these countermeasures. So I could just foresee Trump absolutely doing nothing this turn and just passing.
Isn't he having 9 cards? So at least he should play a naval operation here.
Yeah, you got to get something here or you're burning. I don't mind the Key 83 here. Feels like just a big unit.
Oh, it's gone.
Oh, okay, same effect. Naval
Back in
operation
hand.
is gone. Key back in hand. So
That's a great point. It's the same effect, only nobody's pinned. The same end result
one
there.
less credit, but yeah.
I mean, I think
left.
I like the Blom Voss there, the pickup from the top. You can establish that and still proc at least one of those countermeasures. I would proc a doubting system.
Well, your opponent tried to play K83, so if you can foil this K83 and draw a card in the meantime, it feels like a great opportunity. That's kind of like a cool thing about those two countermeasures being involved together. It's one of them is returning the unit to your opponent's hand, and then when they have it, you set up a hunt for it at that point. Kind of a cool little combo.
Yeah, I mean it's very awesome. I mean I'm just looking at the bombing rate there coming into the hand, and I'm really thinking, this is where Trump has to rely on his coach. I mean, Scout, he's been in this situation so often that he probably knows kind of what's best to do. I don't. I don't play these types of decks. I have no idea what the point is. I don't know if you can just sack that Key 83 into a Night Hunters. Maybe you can. Maybe you can't.
What? Okay, he's doing this and Tora. Getting rid of some of his cards. So he can probably... So I think you want to empty his hand now to bring the Empire of the Sun that is drawing cards
Oh
equal
yeah.
to the amount of attack that an enemy unit is having.
Boom.
That's where
It's a
you
big
don't
guard.
want to have 8 cards in hand. So get rid of
No.
them now.
Definitely not. And I mean, now Alias just floated 3 credits, so you know it's not a Night Hunters. It could be a From the Deep, which kills a unit when you deploy it, but we haven't seen that so far this game. So still a potential that this is a unit-based countermeasure, but more than likely it's going to be an order-based one. And they just pass.
Yeah. Countermeasures, honestly, they're one of the coolest things in the game to me, and they're also one of the most risky things in the game to me, where you have to spend your credit line in order to activate them. However, if your opponent doesn't activate them, the countermeasures deactivate, and if you want to activate them again, you have to spend that credit line again. Now, your opponent doesn't see that you spent those credits, but they do see that you didn't. And so that's where the incentive comes into play around them, is that you see your opponent's credit line still there. So if you looked away for a turn and then you come back and suddenly your opponent's got 5 credit not operated in a draft setting, what that means is there's a very big likelihood of that if they're playing Germany, that is entrapment that is active. So, you know, it's always one of the things that you can find how countermeasures potentially got activated is, did your opponent float a lot of credits during their turn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that doubting system here being up, because at turn 10, there's usually the spot where the Japanese player brings in to the last man an order that clears the whole board, just kills all units on board, and they play around it. So Trump cannot play it here, and instead he's just pinning and waiting for Flag and Elias to not have 3 credits unspent.
Now, the issue with doubting system against the matchup on Trump and Scout's side right now is that in order to counter to foil the doubting system, you need a 4 or greater cost order to do so.
Ooh,
and so
and
when
there
you
it
play
is.
your cheap orders, you know that your opponent doesn't have Ultra. Ultra will stop any order that's being played, and it'll draw a card. But for doubting system, you have to play one that costs 4 or more. And right now, there's only one of those in hand. It costs 7.
Also, they floated the entire 11 credits. They spent 0 credits that turn in terms of like what Trump sees. And you know, there's one thing that I miss in this specific matchup, and I wish that they were sitting opposite each other in real life, because there has been so much just like, I'm just gonna pass. What are you gonna do? Oh, I'm just gonna pass. And they're just kind of staring each other down at the moment. And this is what I said. I mean, I said when you play against Scout, you get on to turn 12. He still hasn't dropped a unit. You have all your removal clogging up your hand, and you're just going, what am I walking into next?
Yeah. One of these days we'll have surrogate bodies so we can travel all over the world while staying inside the comfort of our own homes. But for now, we'll have to settle for the internet. Downing system gonna foil that carpet bombing, and then here we go.
Lurking danger, actually a huge draw off the top. National Fire Service reducing the damage down to 1. So all inbound damage will be reduced down to 1 this turn.
I love
But
that card.
I would play the lurking danger here, because you really want to find either another doubting. You really want to find another doubting or something that blocks an order, because right now they got nothing up that's going to block the to the last man. That's going to wipe the entire board here by Trump and Scout.
Yeah, I do like the idea of using the draw for the countermeasures here as well. And if you don't draw a doubting system, just float 3 credits. Just that's such a powerful bluff. As you know, it's one of the things I like so much about countermeasures. As you know, I was kind of hoping to allude to that at some point, which is if you want to bluff a countermeasure, just don't spend the credits, and then your opponent has to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, right now the problem from Trump's side, he sees that there are 4 credits unspent.
Oh,
Ooh.
he's reaching for it.
I think this is a turn to do it.
Taking the risk and love to see it. Just calls it out, and it succeeds. To the last man, every unit in play is destroyed.
Ooh.
Guys,
This is a 10-cost elite.
there's no coffee cup on the table, so there's no coffee splashing around right now. It makes me sad.
I mean, that cup would have been empty, right?
Pretty much.
After this board clear.
Yeah, so like in a spot like that, the reason I liked the countermeasure draw there was because it tells your opponent, I just drew 2 countermeasures. So when you just draw 2 and then you float 3, it makes that to the last man a lot harder to call out on the bluff side. It's a very, very small thing, but you've told your opponent, I do have 2 more countermeasures here. It's the only thing that could have sold that bluff, I think, is that particular spot. And so right now, Alias using the carpet bombing here just to clear up hand space. You know you're not fighting down any units from Trump's side, and so why have this card in your hand? You're going to need the hand space at some point. Don't risk burning cards by trying to hold onto a carpet bombing, which is doing nothing in the matchup.
You know what? I am 100% sure, and I did get a hint about this from Scout before today's stream, that he and Trump are fully embracing the fact that they are the supervillains of this tournament. They're not going to let us get off easy. They're not going to let us get home early. They're gonna drag out these games. They're gonna make them difficult. So they are there for us to criticize. They're there for us to criticize if we want to. But I mean, personally, I think this is hilarious, and I think they're going to struggle against a more meta heavy approach, like you're going to get from Bubbles coaching Amaz or Darkness coaching Tia. But man, Alias, handful of countermeasures and nothing to proc it.
Yeah, I'm also not sure what the win condition is. If the 87th is not on the board, just delay your opponent. Yeah, but look at this now.
Oh, but there's an entrapment. So the entrapment could come into play now if Trump decides to try and go for it. But this is also gonna. So what the Key 83 does is that at the start of Trump's next turn, it's gonna draw 2 cards for both players, and that's gonna fill up the hand here for Alias, forcing her to overdraw next turn if none of these countermeasures are procced.
3 countermeasures. I've never seen 3 countermeasures active. Make it 4. Make it 4. There's never been 4 active before in the history of cards. They're gonna stick to 3.
And there he goes, full hand. And look at that, another fortification that's going to bump the HQ up to 37 HP. A national fire service that is able to deal with any type of threat. This was definitely not the deck to bring for Alias and Flake against this deck from Trump and Scout.
Honestly, I think that this deck for AliasV can win the game. It would be a matchup dependent thing. Like, you just need to purposefully not to draw cards in the matchup. I feel like. And like, that's maybe a way that you can win. It's like, as soon as you get behind on your opponent in terms of number of cards, that's when everything can kind of go awry. You know, you're looking at fatigue from Trump's side being one of the win conditions. This is a very unusual deck. This isn't really something that I would say exists in terms of tournament metagame or strategy metagame. These are just decks that are trying to have a blast while they're playing.
Ooh, let's talk about the fact that they just pushed the Key 83 up into the front line and triggered the missing. And that's weird. That has to be a misclick. That has to have been like intended as an attack on the HQ, but accidentally moved himself into the front line. I'm not. Research, that could come into handy.
Do you know what also could be the reason to move it to the front line? The defensive 4 that we saw earlier. Maybe they wanted to avoid to get that Key 83 get bounced back to the hand. Yep. So they just move it to the front line, so it stay on the board, and Flake, Elias are just drawing another 2 cards and emptying the deck more and more and more, and Trump Scout in the end winning by fatigue, I guess. I think this is how this battle will end.
I think that might very well be it. And I mean, unfortunately, just for Alias and Flake, they just don't have enough units to pour on the pressure that they really need to. Now floating 3 credits, that is a possible downing, that is a possible envelop, or it could be a bunch of 1 credit countermeasures like it was the case. And there we go, the Kika. When it gets destroyed, it shuffles some kamikaze cards into the deck of Trump and Scout. And what those cards do is when you draw them, you play them for 1 credit. They deal 1 damage to your opponent's HQ and draw you another card. Ooh.
Yeah, I'm looking at some potential here for this to work, but you know, the fact that this landed 6 damage in its blitz effect also has me concerned quite a bit. And so
I think we're gonna see root out.
Okay, they didn't.
Yeah, you clear it out after for sure. You know, you need to get this damage to go into face. So now at this point, you know, there is something to be said about the idea that if you can just establish enough counterplay to what your opponent's doing, that this can work as well. And so it has to, everything, again, it's a very matchup dependent sort of situation here, where it's, you know, very rare that you have experience in these weird attrition style matchups. But, you know, as someone who's just been playing every single card game you can possibly imagine for 26 years, this is just stuff I've run into before. And so This is more of like a core fundamental process, which just when you're in these attrition matchups, how do players actually win? You know, having knowledge of what the cards in the game are trying to do, you know, that's an important effect. But you'll notice the honorable death here, it forces a card draw, and that's actually like a negative thing for AliasV and Flake right now as they're starting to get into their interesting looks for the day.
I mean, Trump is now at 40 HQ HP. Oh, actually, not a full hand. I actually quite like this because I think Alias and Flake there can establish 2 of the 4 costs, and they will still have 4 credits remaining. It's just a matter of how you want to spend them.
I want to deliver the damage. That's what I want to do. You need as much damage as you can get right now, so when you get a chance to deliver 4, deliver 4.
Yeah, that's true. And look at that. You know, Trump and Scout sitting pretty. They're not even activating the National Fire Service. They got 2 of those in their hand, which means that they have 2 turns where all damage to the HQ is going to be decreased down to 1. So, oh, but look at the disguises. They have come on. Now, Trump and Scout will never be able to spot if there is a countermeasure active, because not only is it hidden from view, but the actual players of that countermeasure are hidden as well.
Where did Alias and Flake go? Yeah.
Hey. Just some random dudes sitting there.
Night Hunter's gonna get a pick off on this 1/4 that gives you a couple of extra spell damage or order damage, excuse me. I'm trying to pair that with the Kamikaze to make sure you get a couple points there. But right now at 36, I feel like you're pretty comfortable with your health total.
Yeah, making more. Let's do it. 45.
Ooh, Blackwatch gets drawn. That increases the cost of cards in opposing hand. Just the orders, though. Can be a big difference that takes place. But I'm going to go ahead and establish this 3/4 as well. This 3/4, when at the start of your turn, you draw a card and you deal damage to your opponent's headquarters equal to the cost of that card you drew. So pretty scary fighter plane that's in the back line there as well.
Unfortunate, though, that the Leopold has already been drawn. I have had that happen once where I drew a Leopold off the Hornice, and that was enough to lethal my opponent. It was pretty great. But now there is no interception up. They used all the credits within that round, and Empire of the Sun takes it out, draws them 3 cards, but it is the entirety of their turn because of that Blackwatch.
Comet gets found. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
For this matchup now, that is a repetitive 6 damage that's going to, or I'm sorry, a repetitive 4 damage that occurs, and that goes back to your hand at the end of turn. That's a huge draw.
Absolutely, and the Night Hunters being established now, they just have to avoid taking a whole lot more of damage to their face, because I don't think they have any way to regain life, and that's going to be a problem as they approach fatigue, and Trump and Scout are still sitting on such a high HQ HP.
Yeah, and they have double naval operation, which will pin the whole board. They have last rights in hand, which will give you another 8 kamikaze cards that deal 1 damage to HQ and let you draw a card. I think they have 3 additional left in their deck from the kicker.
Yep.
So this is enough to kill them.
Yeah, 2 damage from the desperate measures as well.
And 2 National Fire Service in the hand, 1 fortification. That will be hard to win for Alias and Flake.
Definitely gonna be hard to win, but you have the cards that can do it, I think. It's a race at this point. Another Blackwatch gets drawn.
They really needed more doubting systems. They needed more stuff that intercepted orders, and if that had been the bulk of their countermeasures, they might be in a better spot right now. But one good thing here with the Comet, if they proc the interception here, that is something that we might be seeing more, because the interception blocks any target that also blocks the HQ. So if a kamikaze card, oh no, it's targeted orders. Apologies. What was that card drawn off the top there?
Look at that Banzai.
I don't recognize this card. I'm kind of curious.
Banzai, clear the board.
Yes, it's Banzai. Destroy all ground units with 4 attack or less. End your turn. That is an elite Japanese order.
There we go. Board is wiped. Alias and Flake are not enjoying that at all. Being put on the back foot one more, taking some selfies in disguise. Who are these people playing the game?
Hey, you have 10 more turns with Comet to end it, I believe. Comet is one of my favorite cards in the game. I've never been able to build a deck that uses this card properly.
and there are currently 9 cards left in both decks. So still a little bit of draw to play
That
around.
is a lot of damage left in Trump's deck there. If that's the case, because that means there are 3 kamikazes which is the damage draw card. They're going to be able to shuffle more in as well. So the thing about it is they're waiting to shuffle in these extras until they're so light on cards that you're just going to draw them all in a row. And I think that's pretty much the way to do it at this point. You know, you've got the board clear, you have the situation to do it, and now here we go. There's 11 1-cost deal a damage, draw a card in the opposing deck, and there's the doubting system showing up a bit late, I'd say, at this point.
Yeah, very late, very late. You definitely wanted that earlier. The comment's going to be coming out as well. The interception probably deployed, but that's only going to... Oh, envelop as well in case there are some blitz units taking the front line.
Start burning cards.
This is very much looking like a game that is over, and it looks like Trump and Scout are going to take this series 2-0. And I think I commend Flake and Alias for bringing this deck. I think it definitely works against a more unit-based deck that is going to be proccing those Night Hunters, those envelopes, those careless talks, and not against the deck that is pretty much just orders.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a bad spot, right? Against orders. I feel like pretty much against any other combo deck that's out there, this kind of works. You know, like I described the Soviet deck I was playing against earlier, where they get a Katyusha in play at the end of the game. They give it Fury with a pincer unit, and then they buff it a lot and attack you twice. This deck feels like it works pretty well against that idea of a strategy.
Yeah, definitely.
8 more turns from the Comet, I believe.
Keep it coming. Keep it coming. And then also, I mean, you might want to look into doing something like continuing that research, because if they take the research up one more level, they are able to spend 9 credits, get the U-boat, destroy a target, and discard 2 hands. And if they do 2 cards from hand, and if they discard the right cards, it might actually open up a small, tiny window for them to claw themselves back into this match.
There has to be a target for it. The targets have felt so rare. Trying their hardest to find an opportunity to get back into this. You know, the Comet, I think if it arrived earlier, that was probably the best spot for it. But there's the damage. 6 left. Make that 5. And that damage right there. Oh boy, that's yeah. That feels like a good one. It's one you're not really looking forward to facing when your opponent's got all these 1-cost damage effects in their deck. Your order steal plus 2 damage is what that 7-cost unit says.
Yeah, now the Leopold comes out.
It might have actually helped them. Now with the Knight 33rd, they can play around deployment countermeasures, and they're also down to 1 credit floating now. So only careless talk maybe as a possible countermeasure. So that might... yeah. Okay.
Oh boy.
Yeah, look at
There's
this.
going to be 3 damage.
And Tora, and it's GG.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, Tora. I wasn't recognizing it as Tora because it was 4 cost. I forgot about the Blackwatch from earlier in the game. So there you go. The orders deck able to just kind of stave off and buy time and sit back and coast.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I mean, I think Scout and Trump are definitely putting in all the efforts to earn the supervillain badge here, bringing a deck that really stretches out a painful game for your opponents. But we'll see how it progresses and how it goes against a more meta type deck, a more unit heavy deck, as we wait for the next round to start. But given what we've seen so far, guys, who do you think is kind of in with a chance to take the victory here, starting with you, Spoos?
Yeah, as Trump and Scout, Scout are playing so unfamiliar decks and so crazy combinations that your opponent is not really expecting. I think they have the edge here just for the surprise factor.
Okay. What about you, Admirable?
If someone's playing Comet, I gotta go with that. I mean, I can't have anything but faith in the Comet. It's just I love that card so much, and just I'm looking forward to ways to activate that. I feel like when you're spending a lot of credits on countermeasures, maybe not the deck that the Comet goes in here. But I'm always hopeful to see Flake and AliasV able to play some games and get some jobs done here as well. I think that countermeasures deck is a lot stronger against anyone who is not playing a pure orders deck, as Scout and Trump are doing here today. So I'm kind of hopeful for that. I'm just kind of golly, I just want to jump in and start playing myself now at this point. You know, there's double XP weekend going on. We just had a new set come out. You know, there's like a couple of offers in the store right now that I want to hop on board and get. You know, there's still a couple things that I need to build out for my collection as well. Just my gosh, this is just such a nice like relaxing game to be playing for me. It's just I enjoy it so much, and it's got so much familiarity in terms of just how the game engine works, but it has this very unique aspect of the front line. And then how the credit operation costs on units are going to be working. You know, it's not just like play the 1 cost thing, play the 2 cost thing, play the 3 cost thing, etc. It's distributing your credits. That way you're also utilizing those units after you play them as well. You know, it's multiple turns of planning where the backline, frontline aspect of it is part of the development of the units, not just simply putting them in play.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I hear quite a bit. I mean, we've heard that from quite a few people kind of around this event, and by introducing new players to cards, that they find it kind of very relaxing and chill, especially if you got the music on and you kind of get into that lo-fi, you know, classic music, 1940s vibe, and I really like it. I use it to chill out as well. There's one thing though, Admiral, that I need to correct from the last broadcast when you were talking about me having access to all the stuff in the game. I've grinded my account to a full collection. I've been given 30 packs total, right? Everything else is just me grinding that account, but and I have around 1,400 hours in the game, so I've earned my collection.
No, hey, I never said you didn't. Spoos, I imagine Spoos, you have a full collection too as well, because you've been playing this game since its introduction to the world. At this point, basically, how long did it take you think, before you established like that entire full collection simply from playing the game?
Actually, in the early stages of the game, the reward system was way less generous. Now with the new progression system, I think newer players have it way easier to get their collection growing. But I think it took me around 1 year back in the past, and yeah, from now on it's just about collecting gold for the future expansions and collecting wild cards. But yeah, I think I don't have all the cards. There are some cards missing, some of the useless special cards that you don't need and just craft. When you have a deck idea, you just craft them, and otherwise you just ignore them. But yeah.
I'm still missing kind of a few elites as well. There are a few that I only have like the gold version of that I've unpacked, you know, through the journey. I think To the Last Man is one of those.
Only a gold version. Oh no.
Oh no. But
only I mean, prettier version of the card.
but that's been my journey. I mean, I grinded through the entire thing, and that's what makes me also really excited about, you know, the double XP weekend, because I don't know about you guys, but for me, playing double XP in cards is extremely rewarding. When I'm bumping up a level, you know, every match or every match and a half, and I'm constantly getting these rewards and you know, being able to tweak my decks between matches, it's just a massive difference to kind of how you can play the game and how fast you can progress. And that's why I'm super excited for this event that we have. Huge shout out to all our participants, you know, Amaz, AliasV, TheaBeasty, and Trump. We appreciate them coming over and introducing their communities to cards. Because we definitely want more people in here having fun with us. Yeah.
The other thing to talk about too is just the draft aspect of it as well. You know, like I drafted a ton in this game. Honestly, if you know me, you already know this aspect about me. If you don't know me, I usually hate drafting. I don't like limited that much. I want to build my deck how I want to build it. I don't want to be introduced to the idea of, well, here's a deck that you didn't anticipate for. If I'm going to play a game like that, I want to play the game like that. When Cards is a game where you build a collection, you build a deck, limited wasn't really appealing to me. And so I gave the draft a try in this game, and I was like, wait a minute, this is actually like a unique way of drafting the game as well. And just kind of everything added up, and it led to like a very smooth experience where it felt like my deck was strong. It felt like I had a lot of choices. It still felt like there were strategic aspects to drafting the game, because you don't just get offered one card at a time. You get offered between 1 and 4 cards in the pool that you're drafting. And so sometimes you take 4 copies of a card because it's really strong. Sometimes you take 4 copies of a card because the other options are so weak. And sometimes you just take a 1 of a card because you want to have more chances to try to find elites for your deck that are very powerful. It's just a really cool format of drafting for it. And this is probably the game, honestly, that in the last 10 years I have drafted more than just about any other game I have ever played. And it's a pretty unusual thing for me.
It's a badge of honor that we will wear proudly, Admirable.
Now, mind you, that's probably like 40 total drafts in the, of my entire time playing cards. But that's 40 total more drafts than I've played than just about any other card game in existence right now, because I just don't like limited that much. But I've enjoyed it in cards. It's like just kind of crazy to me how relaxing and just satisfying the game has been for me at this point. It feels like that I'm just getting paid to say this sort of stuff, but I'm not. I asked to cast cards. The game is so cool and it's awesome. I really encourage y'all to go and download it on Steam. It's a free-to-play game, and it is very much the #1 game that I have on my I want to draft queue list. Cards is the first one up there.
Well, that's awesome, and draft is definitely a great place to both cut your teeth and build your collection. So for anyone, if you did win one of our giveaways in chat, then you're going to be getting a draft ticket as well. So by all means, jump into game and make use of that. But we are going to go on to a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be spectating Amaz versus AliasV, Amaz and Bubbles versus AliasV and Flake. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Mess Hall Brawl. My name is Ole, and with me are Admirable and Spoos, and we are taking a look at 4 veteran card gamers from all over the card gaming scene, try out cards, and see how they do. So, you know, if you're playing the game right now, you probably got a message telling you to come join us. We're about to head on into a game between Amaz and Bubbles and AliasV and Flake as they become ready. Now, we've seen both of these teams play. Alias and Flake very much bringing a unique take on the deck. Amaz and Bubbles staying a little bit closer to the meta. Who do you think is gonna take this one, and how do you think this is gonna play out, Admirable?
Well, my head says Amaz is going to take this one, but my heart says that it's going to be AliasV in this aspect. You know, I love the unique deck aspect. I love the fact that they're willing to also put on some disguises as they head into these countermeasure spy activation sort of things that are taking place here. So, you know, I'm kind of hoping both players win. I know the only one of them's going to win, though. So my head says Amaz, my heart says AliasV.
What about you, Spoos?
Yeah, if AliasV and Flake bringing the same countermeasure deck, I think they might have an edge against Amaz because Amaz and Bubbles brought Alpine and that US deck, bolster deck, and I think they have good answers against that. So I also go with AliasV and Flake to take this serious here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see that because I'm especially excited to see their countermeasure deck go up against the Alpine deck because, you know, countermeasure decks haven't been all that popular in cards. They normally get played around pretty aggressively, especially by players that, you know, are at the point where they know all the countermeasures. But that's not the case here, right? So we might see Amaz maybe run into a couple of misplays and those countermeasures being really, really punishing. But we're just waiting for them to get on into the game. If you are new to cards, then you should jump on in right now because we have a double XP weekend going on, the whole weekend event of Mess Hall Brawl Boot Camp. We also have special offers in store that will help you get a leg up on the competition and get started with your collection progress if that tickles your fancy. So make sure to check that out. But I'm running out of things to talk about as we wait to go on into this next game. Looks like the players are not issuing the challenge just yet. Do you guys have any topics?
There's always something to talk about here for this one. I mean, we just had another session of OCC take place this last week, and OCC is the pro tournament scene that's taking place right now. And we had a player take, I believe it was their 4th OCC title over this last weekend. Is that correct, Ollie?
Yep.
Taking title. 4th OCC title for this one. In order to qualify for the OCC, the Officers Club Championship, you have to either be top 6 on ladder or you have to be one of the 2 players who is able to get there through a tournament progress. And 4 of them that you've taken is just massive. Spoos, I cannot believe that we've had a player take 4 titles, and the other player in the finals was also hunting for their 4th title as well.
It was J King, right? I mean,
that's right.
Yeah. That's probably both. Together with Darknet, I think these are the 3 best players at the moment in cards. And a lot of other strong guys behind them. So it's very impressive to win 4 OCCs. And yeah, probably one of the best players at the moment together with J King.
And that's coming up with the World Championships that's taking place here like in just a few months. Isn't that right, Ollie?
I mean, we're already going with the World Championship. We just had the open qualifiers. The first open qualifier has concluded. The second one is ongoing. So anybody can participate in the open qualifier. If you complete, your qualification, you'll also receive a card back, a limited edition card back. So a lot of exciting things happening. After this open qualification stage, we go to the knockout stage, and then we do the grand finals at the beginning of December here in a LAN setting in Iceland. And I am so excited to see kind of the next crop of people come to Iceland, meet them in person, because we haven't been able to do that since 2019 due to COVID. So I'm really excited to have the people over here, and we're also looking into getting the broadcast team over here in person as well. So that should be a great show.
Yeah, and where exactly can I find more info on this stuff? I know it's on KARDS.com, but like, how do I? There's so much cool stuff to navigate. Every time I click on that site, I go, "Ooh, deck builder," and I click on that, and I start clicking elsewhere. Is there like a specific link that we have that it can give me more information about that?
We're currently working on adding a full overview of all our competitive kind of aspirations and competitive events onto our website, KARDS.com. But at the moment, is mostly just, this is all around the World Championship is going to be available through the client. So whenever you go into the client, you can open up the World Championship hub there, and all the relevant information is going to be available to you right there. So
much better link.
Yeah, right now,
instead of typing it in.
Go into the client, play a game, and then learn about the World Championship.
All right,
That's
cool.
pretty much it.
Well, it's Mess Hall Brawl that we're on right now. Then it's an exhibition that we have going on. We're looking forward to our next match right now. Players are getting set up for it. I'm really looking forward to this. This is like a cool weekend where players have been encouraged to play as meme as a strategy as you wish to see. And we just came off of the Scout and Trump matchup spoos, which had a full order stack in this one. What do you think the craziest deck spoos that you have played so far is that had any amount of relevancy to you winning a game whatsoever?
Most craziest deck. I mean, I think that KB1 was probably the most crazy one I tried out.
Force your opponent to draw and punish him.
I mean, that's what I like about cards. There's so much different stuff you can try out if it's working. There's so many nice combinations where you can build a deck around. And this game is never getting boring. I mean, I'm streaming this game for almost 2 years now, a little bit more. And there's still new stuff you can find out. And there are balance patches coming that are changing. It feels like it's changing the whole game and making new strategies possible. And yeah, even after 2 years, I'm still enjoying to start a stream and entertaining the community, having fun with them together. I think the cards community is one of the nicest communities I ever met. And that is what is making me happy to be part of that, and is making me enjoying it to start a stream and have fun with this incredible nice game.
Yeah, and just as a reminder for anybody watching, if you do want to be in the know of the conversation between the coach and the players, all of our participants today are streaming their perspectives on their relevant channels. So /Amaz, AliasV, TrumpSC, or TheaBeasty, and they should always be available in the cards category as well. But it looks like we are about to head on into the match here. It looks like, yeah, at least Amaz has loaded on into the game, and we are about to jump in. So we are back in the action here. Amaz versus AliasV. Backing up Amaz is going to be Innocent Bubbles, and backing up Alias is going to be Flake. And it looks like they are indeed bringing their countermeasure deck into the first one here against a very, very unit-heavy USA deck.
That will be an interesting one.
I know you said your take. You expect the countermeasures deck to be able to highly perform in this one. Why exactly do you expect the countermeasures deck to be so strong in this matchup?
I mean, they have things like Missing and the new Envelope, which are really good against frontline decks. And that US deck wants to be in the front line to get the most value out of things like their Shermans that draw you 2 cards when you have a US unit in the front line. And also the 109 engineers giving a unit +1 attack when it moves to the front line. And yeah, Flake and the Liars are having good answers against units that want to go to the front line. And that's why I think they might have a slight edge here. The only downside is things like Airstrike that give an opponent's unit back to his hand when he deploys it and makes one of his cards discarded. That card backfires when playing against Amaz and Bubbles because they have the M4A1 in their deck, and this is getting drawn when your opponent forces you to discard. So they're spending 3 credits to give their opponents 2 draws. So this might backfire a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, there's always some sort of counterplay in every aspect, it feels like, in this one. Looks like Missing is going to be first up for grabs. And Amaz now getting 3 credits here. Ooh, one of the M4A1s drawn right away, though. little bit of a punishing effect. You know, is the downside of playing cards that do stuff like this is that sometimes you draw your please stay in the deck cards.
So, what do you think about that missing play here? Kind of going to work out for them here, grabbing that 35T as it goes into the front line. But it was a discussion between missing or from the deep. Which one do you prefer there, Spoos?
I think it's a close one. I think I also prefer missing because of the 35T. You don't want to have this in the front line, and that 109. Otherwise, the 109 engineers would have been catched from the deep, and second play 35T would have come in. So the board would have been way worse than it is at the moment, I guess.
I just wonder where that Panzer went.
I think there are arguments for both counterplays.
Well, so I mean, the M4A1 there is sitting in the hand, and it can be played this turn because of the Geberg's Pioneers, but opting to go for the Chocolate Boys instead. That does throw it back into hand, draw the other M4A1, but now the missing can be used in conjunction with the 87th Grenadiers on turn number 4 here for Alias and Flake, and that could potentially be a big start of a snowballing little unit.
Interesting spot here. Do you want to move forward and start trying to deliver some damage? The answer is yes. You're going to have to get damage through at some point.
Ooh. Now it's a little bit more of a tough spot because with that frontline pressure, you can no longer play the 87th Grenadiers and hope that your opponent deploys a unit before they attack. So I'm looking at the Blom and Voss now.
Yeah, me too. I think there's no other play than that at the moment. You don't want to deploy the 87th and then just get it killed by the Gebirgs Pioneers. That's how they're called. There's so many Gebirgs, Jägers, Gebirgs, Volksgrenadiers, whatever.
Even the German guys are confused by the German names. How do you think I feel now?
Just too many of them.
But now I gotta say, you know, that Gebirgs Pioneer surviving for so long has really helped Amaz kind of accelerate his game a little bit. He's able to establish the M4A1, put a third unit into the front line, and that's going to start becoming extremely, extremely difficult for Alias and Flake to deal with unless they're able to find the envelop countermeasure.
I love the extra credit units. Like they're so powerful and they're just so tough to make it a game and balance out like in really any way whatsoever. But it feels like it's right in this game. I don't really know what it is. I guess because like the rarity balance, it might be one of the things I'm thinking about here. Like you can only have as many copies of a unit as its rarity. So like it's elite, you get one of them. If it's a special, you get 2, etc. You get 3 and you get 4 at the end of it. It feels like such a unique way to have that built out. You know, I've seen it in plenty of card games before. But in this game, it just feels like it's right. You know, you can only have 2 copies of this little extra credit unit that's taking place, and it just makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, go ahead.
I think AliasV and Flake they're trying to figure out how to not send the signal that they have a countermeasure active at the moment, and it's just really difficult to send that signal when you have a unit in play that can pick off some pretty important units on your opponents, and they're going to go with airstrike here in this little 2/2. Whenever a countermeasure gets activated, it gets buffed. But this is a scary looking board on Amaz's side. It looks like that bolster is ready for action.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I mean, that's going to become a beefy boy. It's going to become a 6/7 that can't be targeted by orders. I guess the thing that you really need to be aware of here, if you're Amaz, is that with 3 credits floated, you could be running into an envelop. But they do the correct thing, right? To get rid of the 87th Grenadiers in case they start getting buffed. The coffee takes a little nice swirl. You know, I love my coffee. And they're going to do all of this before they ever deploy another unit. I actually really like just not deploying another unit here. Test the envelop by moving the Chocolate Boys up, bolster, and then hit face.
I have to say, Ali, I'm so happy with how proud you are of the coffee.
Yeah,
I am.
Best game mechanic.
This is this is the first kind of interactive or like animated table prop that we do, right? That responds to the what's happening on the board.
So yeah, I was really surprised to see it moving.
Yeah,
I
mean, I'm really proud
looked
of it.
Nice, and suddenly
Did you see this? They Amaz and Bubbles, they hunted out every aspect of what this countermeasure could have been. They didn't trigger it, and they get the full aspect value out of it. So Ollie, when you say correct play by attacking that 2-1, I wasn't sure it was the correct play. It was depending on how they follow it up. And the way that they followed this up was massive. Holy smokes, this is a huge advantage that that Amaz and Bubbles have right now.
Yeah. And they're going to be able to trade out they're going to be able to really easily trade out that Raft Lightning in case if they
I
want.
don't know if you want to trade it out. Just I mean, this is
No.
10.
You don't. You don't.
You just,
you're putting
bounce the Ref Lightning back, go face here for 10.
10. It's hard to talk me out of dealing 2.
Yep, 10 damage to face and 2 chocolate boys more in the backline if they want to. Anybody wondering why we call them chocolate boys? Because they're eating chocolate on the picture.
I always kind of wondered why, and I just never bothered to ask. It's like one of those things where you're like, huh, yeah, chocolate boys, I get it.
But now big carpet bombing coming in here.
Yeah, that's still 7 left unattended there, and that means that's going to be game because we have strategic bombing in the hand.
And they also got a Panzer Grenadiers, so if they wanted to make that a Fury unit, they could. And it looks like they want to go the stylish way out with the Fury unit. 7 damage, minus 6 HP on the HQ here, and Amaz and Bubbles take the first match here against Alias and Flake. And I think Alias and Flake need to go to KARDS.com/decks and find some deck codes for some meta decks because this countermeasure deck is not working out too hot for them right now.
No, not really. Yeah, I expected the match to go a little different, but Amaz and Bubbles with a very good start here. And yeah, the problem with the countermeasures, they cost you a lot in the early to activate. And if your opponent is not triggering it, you just wasted your whole turn for nothing. And that backfired a lot here for Flake and Alias. And let's see if they bring a new deck in the second game or if they stay with their countermeasure strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I really think this is a difference of coach, right? I mean, if Amaz doesn't have Bubbles sitting, in behind him, going like, oh no, there could be a countermeasure that does this. Oh no, there could be a countermeasure that does this. Then I think agree. Alias and Flake do way better, right? But you got one of the best players in the game there, sitting right next to you, feeding you info, feeding you how to play the turn, and that plays a big role. But I like Amaz. He's rocking the cosmetics. Now he's got the headphones. No more coffee, though. Makes me sad. But he's really taking pride.
Coffee's just be a permanent structure of the game here, according to Ollie. It's like I think it should be like a coffee card back.
Yes,
I think we need to introduce a coffee nation into the game as both a main and an ally. I think a coffee expansion sounds pretty cool. Let's have a coffee hall brawl in a couple weeks here.
Coffee tasting brawl,
yeah.
I mean, this just shows you how important coffee is in the life of an employee of an independent games developer, right? It's our lifeblood.
Hey,
translates
it's in mine as well. I'm sipping my cold brew right now. Yeah, I need a cold brew coffee. This one, anything over 70 degrees is like scalding hot to me. I can't tolerate it.
Ooh.
Oh, then you wouldn't handle the coffee in the game because that is smoking hot.
Oh yeah, I mean, really if that coffee in game doesn't actually scald your skin, like in the first 0.5 seconds of it touching it, it's basically just not coffee, according to Ollie.
That's true. And
Spoos,
now,
you sounded excited about that previous turn, Spoos. What do you have in mind?
When did I say what?
You sounded like you were pretty interested in that previous turn. I was curious what you had in mind.
Nothing special, I think. I do not really remember, but what I see in Amaz and Bubbles' hand here is double pursuit. So the Grenadiers just going back to the hand, wasting another 3 credits, as I mentioned earlier. And in the meantime, Amaz and Bubbles establishing a huge board. And with Alpine, with every unit your opponent is having on his board, every additional unit is just being bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's getting harder and harder to remove all of them. And
oh boy,
with that encirclement.
Yeah, you get that encirclement. You also have an Eastern Front bound if you want to play that on the following turn. You got another pursuit if you want Alias and Flake to have to spend 4 credits again next turn to establish that guard.
So many strong things you can do here because that guard unit is only a 4/7 while it's your opponent's turn. And so for for Amaz and Bubbles, they're staring at this 4/7. You don't have to eliminate that thing right away. It's not going to chop away your board. So they have a bunch of options here. They could go with the encirclement to develop and play this 22nd infantry here to draw cards. They could simply play the buff for the Alpine units and draw that way, but it just feels like this is the way to do things right now. Like you're using your credits very efficiently here. You dug to another encirclement at this point, and this 1/7 doesn't really it doesn't chop away at the board here. It's really what it's doing is it's trying to set up that carpet bombing for a turn or so. But this just feels like a very packed hand for AliasV and Flake here, and a very packed board that is starting to happen here, Spoos.
Yeah, and also that encirclement is not triggering airstrike, not triggering night witches, because these are deployment effect or unit deployment countermeasures that trigger when you deploy a unit. Encirclement is adding a unit to the front line, so it's doing absolutely nothing, and that's very, very hard for them. But that Yak Bomber here sending a unit back will also give Amaz an additional draw now, so it helped for now, but might backfire later.
That's a lot of Alpines.
I would say I want to see Amaz play the 3rd Alpini regiment, the 2nd Alpini regiment, and then encircle the 2nd Alpini regiment in the front line, because that's going to be
actual
a +5.
3rd Alpini regiment.
It's going to be a +5/+5 on that last unit that he deploys. And just don't worry about trading out the board at the moment. Your presence is so big, and Alias is still 5 turns away from anything like Leopold. So the worst thing is she could carpet bomb, but that's not going to clear your board at that point.
Yeah.
I'm also looking at you could play one of the Alpini regiments, and then you copy that one to give it blitz. You're able to eliminate the 4/7, I believe. Or am I crazy in thinking this? I think I'm crazy in thinking this. Yeah, my math's a little bit off. I'm looking at trying to use the Nashub to get just a little bit of extra development out of this board as well. And you're just not quite there yet. And so setting up for next turn here is pretty big. Root out the enemy is pretty good.
That's actually pretty massive.
It's wiping out quite a bit here. And that's setting you up for the carpet bombing, perhaps. It's a pretty tough spot to be in, but honestly, I think we have a game here.
I'd play the Panzer IV, just bounce one of those Alpini regiments back. The reason why I would do that, and this is because we can see Amaz's hand, right? If he has an obese in there, then that's a really bad play, actually.
I'm looking at the bomber, the fighter here being able to attack the 6/6 and then root out the enemy and clear out all but 3 of these units, and it leaves you with the taunt. Oh, the backline's filled up. The retreat. I forgot when the backline's filled up, the retreat puts it back in hand. Oh, okay, this is way better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's way stronger. Okay, forget all the nonsense I just said.
Oh, but look at that! Look at that top deck. The obese got drawn, right? So that's actually massive because you can pursuit, and that'll make all your Alpine units operate for 0. You'll move the 22nd up into the front line because you don't want to quote unquote spend the unit before you drop the obese. Then you drop the obese into the slot there, and you have 5 units in the front line that can all attack as well for 0 off cost. What an insane turn here for Amaz. He's opting though to throw them all into the front line.
Wait.
Oh, they get to attack as well, right?
No, I don't think so. It's working like Lightning Conquest. He messed up.
Yes,
it needs to be delivered in specific mechanical order as well.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a bug. I'm not sure if this is intended, but there's an order called Lightning Conquest for Japan that has the same mechanic, which says infantry unit can move and attack the same turn. But once you move them and play this order, you can no longer attack. That is
because 10 missed damage.
Yeah, because so what you do is like once you have finished the turn, what happened there is that as soon as he moved them up into the front line, without that thing being active, they already spent their turn, right? So they weren't going to be reactivated by the obese, and that's what actually caused a lot there. And that might have been the difference between a game win and a game loss if Alias and Flake are able to claw themselves back into this game now.
Yeah, I will also minorly disagree with this attack from the AliasV Flake side. I think you trade with the 5/5. Having a 5/2 does not present value right now. It actually presents liability at this point because we have a 2/1 that's able to trade with this 5/2 and generate an extra credit for the turn. So I think that the pure trade pure trade there at the start is going to be a little bit better. Although this is kind of committing your opponent to an idea, I just feel like this 2-1's not super relevant at the moment. It's a very minor little thing there where I just figured like I wanted to offer some criticism because, you know, there's just a lot going on in this game where like the little things feel like that they're going to end up mattering in the spot. And right there, we get to see the difference that Spoos was talking about earlier, where the Noshub has just changed. It didn't get nerfed; it got changed. It's any unit you destroy on your turn now. The first one that you destroy is going to give you 2 extra credits for that turn. And so for right now, I'm just looking at how much Alpine stuff is in hand and just how much damage this is. Spoos, this is a lot.
This time he's not messing it up with the OB order. But this means 10 damage to face now, right?
It's at least 10 to face. Looks like 12 to me.
Another 2. Yeah, it's 12 damage. And that's a lot of pressure. I mean, Flake and Alias,
Envelop gets drawn, but can you afford to use it? You have to be able to save yourself first. So I'm looking at the Seaforth Highlanders here, maybe being able to protect this board, and then Envelop being able to wipe this out. This could be a comeback.
If that happens, if Amaz runs that second Alpini regiment into the front line there and just wipes the entire board, that is going to be the best envelop we've ever gotten on camera. You can see the fingers crossed there for Alias and Flake. They know that it's all going to come down to this with the Jags bomber. That's not going to be it. That's not what they wanted. No movement into the front line, and Amaz and Bubbles take this series 2-0.
Congrats.
Countermeasures. It's countermeasuring themselves right now. They're being hoisted by their own petard in this spot, Ollie. Like I hate to say it, but countermeasures are their setups, right? They're not reliabilities. And you have to be able to set up for the countermeasures to work. I appreciate their commitment to this strategy and the desire to follow through on it, but golly, it feels like we don't have enough countermeasure right now that's actively fighting these early game strategies. It feels like the countermeasures are right where I feel like they're intended to be right now, which is setting up to completely foil an opposing plan. That's
guys, I just tuned in to TheaBeasty versus Trump, and TheaBeasty just won their match. She just wiped the board with 22 HQ HP left, and you know, on turn 10, just beat out the delayed deck there, the draw you out and fatigue you out deck from Trump and Scout. So TheaBeasty, man, really pouring in the pressure there. Wow, I didn't expect that. I just wanted to check if they were playing a game, but I mean, they just finished it with the California kid in the front line, 7-2, and 3 established bombers in the back line. Man, Trump and Scout found themselves in a tough spot there. Now I'm really excited to see if there's another game left of that series, actually.
Yeah, we're going to be getting tuned in. There's streams going on all the way across here. You can go over to AliasV, twitch.tv/AliasV, Amaz, TrumpSC, or TheaBeasty on this one, THEA Beasty. All the players' streams are being, they have their perspective set up where they're going along with their coach, so you can kind of listen in and hear what their thoughts are going to be on this one. We're kind of like the centerpiece red zone for this, where we're kind of getting everything delivered. If you're trying to get interested in yourself too as well, there's a double XP that's going on right now where you jump into the game and it'll help build your collection out as quickly as possible. There's a huge progression system that's in place for going through the game right now. There was just a mini set that was released with just a few extra cards in it, but they're very powerful cards that have been introduced to the game, and I've been trying to find ways to work on all of them. It has one of my favorite cards I've ever seen in there, with a card called Red Devils. Really looking forward to checking it out. And then there's also just some offers that are taking place in the game right now for new players as well. Some pretty cheap stuff to help you get a little bit of a core collection built and start cooking up some decks and seeing what kind of trouble you can brew up while you're hopping into the ladder there. So I'm really looking forward to this one. We still have now 4 more round robins that are taking place here in this Mess Hall Brawl event weekend. In Spoos, I'm curious, what have you seen so far that has most piqued your interest?
I think the countermeasure deck. Unfortunately, it did not work, but it's an interesting strategy. I would love to be this a little bit more competitive. So as you mentioned, maybe we need 1 or 2 more countermeasures that are really good. A new countermeasure came this expansion with Envelop. I had some hard encounters with it when I played my Alpine deck and did not have it in mind. A new countermeasure, usually you have your usual candidates in your head and think, okay, they can have this. And suddenly this thing pops up and you there's this new one, and your whole front line with 7-8 and a 5-5 and 6-6 suddenly goes into nowhere, and I lost this match, and this happened twice. And I think I will never ever forget Envelope again.
That's kind of the way you learn countermeasures in cards, right? You run
Learn
into
it the
them
hard
once,
way, yeah.
and you're just like, oh my god. Then you do it again, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I forgot. Then you do it again, and at that point you start remembering. That's
Hey.
normally how I do it, at least.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Well, you're not going to fool me again.
Well,
Then it
let's
happens
take
the
a
third time, yeah.
let's take a quick look at the standings as they stand here after round number 2. We are starting off with round number 3. Bubbles and Amaz currently 2-0 in the lead, having beaten out both TheaBeasty and Flake and AliasV. TheaBeasty 1-1, having beaten 2-0 Scout versus TrumpSC. So a really dominant display of talent there. And then, of course, Scout and Trump at 1-1, originally beating out Flake and AliasV, but then losing to TheaBeasty and Darkness. So some pretty even scores here. Bubbles and Amaz taking an early lead. Let's see if that sticks or if we're going to see another shakeup.
Yeah, we're going to see if Amaz can tackle the orders from Trump and Scout here that are coming up pretty quickly. I do think that the orders deck is pretty well built in terms of handling just normal scaling aggression. The bolster, I think, could be a really scary effect that deck's going to be taking on. It feels like bolster is going to be part of the core lineup that Amaz is going to be launching here. And Spoos, I'm kind of curious on your take with that Japanese orders list. What does that deck really have to be doing in order to fight a strategy like the bolster strategy, where it's able to just deliver a huge punch from such a small angle?
I mean that Japan deck has a lot of AoE orders in it that are affecting the whole board, and that US deck is, besides those Shermans and M4A1s and Panthers, is having a lot of units that don't have that much HP, so it can be easy to wipe the whole board and play it into the late game strategy where your deck starts to shine, where you deploy these bombers that give additional damage to your orders and slowly but surely reduce your opponent's HQ health. That US deck is also not running some healing, so I think the time and place for you, play out your long range recons, your fortifications, heal, delay your opponent, and then, as we saw earlier, just finish them.
Yeah, and we now have, we're coming up on the match between here Trump and Amaz. That match has already started, and I'm looking at what Trump is bringing to the table, and I see a Cross of Lorraine and Defend in Depth and the Bismarck in hand. So it looks like that's some French cards sneaking in there. And it's very, very clear that Trump and Scout decided to take the supervillain all the way. Fatigue decks and resistance.
Yes.
That's not going for the win in any popularity contest. That's for sure.
Hey,
I don't think it's resistance, honestly. It is a German France burn deck.
Ooh.
We use that Cross of Lorraine to deal face damage. You have Bismarck in it, Kriegsmarine. So with that card that you thought would be Defend and Death is actually a phony war that gives you and your opponent 8 cards in hand. And with your opponent having a lot of cards, stuff like Kriegsmarine is just insane. It's just dealing 8 damage, discarding your opponent 1 card.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward how this pays out against the Mars and Bubble stacks.
I'm looking forward to this match. This is like a nostalgia kickback for me that's taking place here. My gosh, this is like all the way back to 2013 for me when I first met these two, and it felt like they were just competing in every single tournament that I participated in or that I was casting or whatever it was. I'm looking forward to jumping into it. So we're gonna get going now.
I mean, I just want to say, as a member of the dev team, I'm watching Amaz and Trump play my game, and I am a little fanboy right now. I am a teeny little fanboy right now. Whew.
I will say that Trump and Bubbles are getting pretty overwhelmed here, though, as we get a peek at this board. We're heading into to turn 5 at this point in Spoos. Trump is way far behind on the board right now.
Absolutely. Only having Cross of Lorraine and that phony war, that will Amaz and Bubbles also give.
It's not even their turn. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's terrifying.
That's terrifying. I'm not even sure what top deck could help them here at turn 5. I don't think there's... Okay, that might help. That might help. I mean, that's how much? +8?
+8 health.
So they had a Reichsbank in the previous turn then for 5 extra credits. I see there on the left now that the history bar. that's taken place there. But I don't. How did they get back into this though? Like this seems like, I mean, Lethal is very threatened next turn.
Very much so. And I just again want to point out that the player bringing coffee is winning.
Not
We
yet. I
determined
mean,
that coffee is the edge.
Pretty much. Oh,
they're also down to 14. There, Trump and Scout have a Bism argument, which deals another 7 to their face. So if they can find something that maybe delays the problem a little bit, they might be actually able to win. Look at this phony war here. Not giving
Wow.
Amaz and Bubbles any draw, but themselves a lot of. And look at this lightning strike.
Wait, could this
Everybody
actually work? Could they actually pull this off?
Well, they need to stay alive for a turn, which they can do because they're 17. They need to be able to stop the board pressure for one turn after that. And then I think that this could be a win. It feels like a lot of stuff has to take place here because this bolster is really, really digging into this this stay alive plan pretty hard.
14 damage to face this turn. They're going to be left at 3 HP. There's no National Fire Service in this deck, so they're not able to massively reduce the damage that they take here. Oh, this is going to be a tough one. Especially with just 6 credits. If this was the turn... Oh! It's not going to be enough, though. It's not going to be enough. It's
Not
just,
really, no.
It's just going to be +9, and they're going to die next turn.
You needed some pin the board stuff going on here.
Yeah.
And there's
This
no
deck
defend in
is-
depth either, so they can't get rid of that Sherman.
Oh, there's one. The second one from the left.
Oh,
But it's
yeah.
not
Oh, there's
helping.
2.
Then you're still having 3 units there that deal 7 damage.
I just don't think it's enough.
It's not
Discard a
enough. They just-
countermeasure. That's 3 damage.
He can deal...
Oh, he also played Ride of the Valkyries, right? You can kill 2 units,
Yes.
but then it's still 4 damage. So not.
Oh, that is so close. That is so close.
Just 2 more credits, then you could play Liberation and defend in that. Kidding.
Yeah.
just shy of what they needed.
Ah.
And you can see Amaz and Bubbles are getting excited about this one. They get to finish this one off. And if they take this series, they're going to be 3-0 after the first round.
Yeah, I think Trump and Scout would have had a better matchup with the Japan deck, because this has a lot of pinning. This German deck is not running any pin. Maybe they bring it next series. And I expect Amaz and Bubbles to bring that Alpine deck again, I guess. They like to mix things up.
Yeah, it looks like they very much prefer kind of jumping between those two matches, those two decks. Sorry. Let's just jump immediately. Whoops. Immediately back into the next game.
Yeah, familiarity is like, I think it's always just like an important thing to have pretty much anytime you're playing a game and you're like you're at least trying to win. You need to know your deck. And so even though you have a coach sitting next to you there, and even though you've been playing cards for a long time, like card games, I always feel like I need to specify that every time I'm talking about cards. I have to specify I'm talking about cards spelled with a K, as in the game cards, or cards as in like the concept of cards as a game.
But
Wait
look,
a second.
Look.
What?
Okay, so Bubbles has, I think, metagamed Trump and Scout here and brought a counter to the counter.
I mean, they definitely brought a resistance deck.
I mean, Bubbles spoke about it. We all laughed, but look at this. He made it true.
I like the resistance decks personally. I love strategies like this because they require a lot of foresight in order to execute properly, and countering them requires you to think very much in a counter intuitive aspect when you're approaching these kinds of matchups. The way that you win these is so different than the way you would normally consider and normally think in these kinds of spots. And so if you don't have the experience for it, it just doesn't work out what you're trying to do usually.
Yeah. For me included, for a lot of players, it's so annoying to play against resistance because it's a complete different game, it feels like. You have to do so many things completely different than in a normal matchup. But I don't like the mechanic in general. It's just... Luckily, they changed it. In the earlier stages of resistance, you were forced to always discard a card from your deck when you play the resistance card. That was way more annoying than it is in the moment, but I'm still not a big fan of it.
Hey, well, that's the thing about the resistance cards is that it's everyone thinks it's like a zero-sum fun where it takes the fun from one player and gives it to another, but it's actually multiplicative. It takes that fun from you and doubles it, giving it to me in that aspect. So I actually think that there's more fun involved with resistance in general, personally. It's just that it's really stacked onto whoever the resistance player is.
It's just really one-sided fun.
Yeah, it's very one-sided fun, but it is a lot more fun, I think, in terms of a total amount of fun that's being had.
I mean, from my personal experience, kind of post changes to resistance, I haven't had a ton of issues with it. You know, I think it's in a pretty decent spot where it is right now. I'm wondering why we're playing the Empirical Decree here on top of the Tortora, because that'll put it up to what, 3 damage?
I'm just trying to control hand size, I think.
Yeah, that could be it. Could be it.
Because there are 2 phony walls waiting in their hand. And
oh yeah, empty that hand and start getting cranking.
I think that's a very bad matchup for Trump and Scout.
Oh yeah, this is hideous. This is the counter. Like you're playing a deck that wants to ignore the board and play stuff that just foils the board and stalls it and stalls it and stalls it. And now you're playing against a deck that instead goes, okay, well I'll just put my board into your hand instead and let you deal with it.
and just look at that. Look at that. Those 4 naval operations right now. 4
yeah,
of
like
them.
they're doing nothing. And look at this turn from Amaz and Bubble's side here, where they're able to wipe out this Key 83 with no problem whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're able to fill up the opposing hand and say, here you go, burn your own cards. Like there's just so much counter effect that's happening against this order deck from Trump and Bubbles here, and it's just that's the reason why this resistance deck I think is so awkward and unusual to play against. Is if you are not delivering board pressure, this resistance deck does not care what you are doing, and it has a massive natural advantage.
I like that I like that they let that Key 83 live, because now Trump is overdrawing 2 cards because he got 2 resistance cards. He was at 9. That Key 83 just gave him 2 that go into nowhere, and so maybe you're forcing your opponent to discard his last rights, which is mainly the win condition of this deck, together with the kicker, and I'm not sure if they also play Shidden, but that's insane amount of draw that Amaz is having here. Not draw, but heal. It's making it hard to bring these win condition into this match here.
Yeah, it's kind of like an unusual situation where you're in, where very rarely do you care if your opponent's burning cards, but this is a matchup where at the start, if you know this is the matchup, you expect it to go the distance. And when you expect it to go the distance, burning cards is a lot more valuable than it is when you're like in a regular matchup where your opponent's trying to deliver board pressure. If your opponent's trying to deliver board pressure, burning their deck almost means nothing. If your opponent's trying to go the distance, burning cards from their deck can mean winning the game almost instantly if you see the right card get burned.
Yeah, and you see the managing hand size there. But you know what thought went through my head when I realized that, Amaz and Bubbles are basically bringing resistance into this one. It's like they came in as the good guys. They came in with the standard decks, the meta decks, and then they went and they just became the villain, right? Through this matchup, they just became the villain. They were like, there's too much evil in this world. They're bringing those meme decks. We got to fight injustice with injustice. So they just bring out the resistance, and we all have to sit back and watch as they play that.
Oh man!
And I mean, just
I'm
looking
not sure
at
how
Trump's
this.
hand, like there's no ground units to pin. 0.
Oh, you just burn these cards from your hand. Yeah, this is discard these effectively. You have to spend 3 to discard them, unfortunately, but there's not really much else you're trying to do with your hand at the moment. I think it's just a matter of, again, maintaining hand size in a proper manner is a very important aspect here, and it's something that you have to be doing basically from the start of the game. This is something that got introduced to me, I would say, years ago, with the first time someone tried to burn out my deck. And I was like, oh, I get it. You just have to maintain your hand size. And this is, again, what I mean by some of the counterintuitive plays. You're doing things that just don't make any sense. You're playing cards that are meant to stall the game for as much as possible. And instead, all you're trying to do is not have access to those cards as much as you can now.
Yeah, I'm wondering what you do here as Amaz and Bubbles, because the way Trump and Scout are playing this, they're not giving them a lot of stuff to spend their cards on, right? So they're kind of stuffing up the hand, and even though you talked about, I mean, there's 2 phony wars there that will refill the hand, so there's plenty of kind of draw to be had there from Amaz, but it's difficult when you don't have targets to attack.
Honestly, guys, I think this game is going into fatigue. Who's drawing less cards here will win the match in the end. I think this is how it's going. All these orders that are meant to set your opponent to 0 are not working because they both have so much healing in the deck that I don't think that it will ever be enough to deal enough damage in the regular playtime, I would say. So it's basically just who's having his deck empty earlier might lose this game.
Yeah, and that's when the key 83, 2-card discard might even come back to be the deciding play in the game if it goes that far. And I'm still getting over the fact that we're watching these 2 players play cards, and they're both bringing kind of these insane, wacky left wing strategies, like way out of the left field. These are not the decks that you typically see in the tournament play, and I love it. I'm so here for it.
How do you want to use the rest of these cards? Again, hand management is super important in this aspect. So I think this is probably the right call. It's just using the Torah. And you get a little poke from the key 83 here as well. So Trump and Bubbles, hand gets filled up, but pretty easy to reduce this hand size as well in a spot like this. And I imagine if you're Trump and Bubbles side of things, this turn that you just saw makes you feel a lot more comfortable about the position that you were in a couple turns ago.
Isn't this a great spot to just deploy the Kavanishi and drop a Torah?
It might not be just because it's like you might want to be using that with all the kamikaze effects you expect to shuffle in later, the 1 damage draw card thing. I would say that the Kawanishi is probably a pretty important factor to have. And so I think Trump and Bubble side, it's just, again, hand size management is number 1 key. You still have another countermeasure in hand that can kind of stop some of this damage. I think it's use the little guys first if you're going to use these Tauras.
Yeah,
especially because next turn you can drop Kavanishi and double Tora since you have 11 credits. So yeah. I think it was the correct play to play Siren here and then 1 Tora and keep the rest in hand.
It's actually that Siren top deck from Amaz and Bubbles is actually massively significant because it makes that bombing raid actually take out the opposing Siren for Trump and Scout, and it deals 3 damage to the HQ, so it keeps chipping away at that ever so slightly, and they end up with an established 1/4 bomber on their field that gives additional damage to all their orders. So and that's going to be a tough one to remove here for Trump. And
I mean, he has 2 options with the Kavanishi. You can play Kavanishi bombing raid or Kavanishi double Tora.
Do you need to remove it now though? Because I mean, I don't see a whole lot of threat of it being on board for another turn, for instance.
I do like the idea of the Kawanishi just because it is itself a threat. And your opponent, you don't have a ton of cards in your hand, and you saw that your opponent's main removal was going to be the 3 cost that deals a damage equal to the number of cards that you have in your hand. And if you don't have that many cards in your hand, that means that thing is not getting wiped out by a single copy of Defend in Depth right now. And that seems like a pretty powerful idea. So Amaz here is going to be forced to use Phony War if he wants to wipe this out with Defend in Depth. And that's exactly what he's going to do, it seems like. I guess you could Honorable Death it here as well, force the card draw. Yeah,
he's much better. So they're overdrawing another card now, because now they are at 9.
Yeah,
because they go to 9 cards, and that's a gain 9 from the long range recon.
That was an exceptional order. And last right gets burned. Ooh.
Okay.
Wow! Look at Amaz. Look at how happy he is.
I think this is.
Oh, the surrender.
Yeah, that's not even. See, that's common sense. Your deck relies specifically on that card to deliver its final damage. When you don't have that in the deck anymore, you don't have the final damage. That shows you why that deck is vulnerable the way it is that if your opponent is not playing a unit-based strategy, you can get sunk pretty easily.
Yeah, and I mean, just look at the genuine smile on the face of Amaz as they discarded that card, as they had them overdraw that card. That was absolutely beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Um, man, and 2-0 here. Amaz and Bubbles, they remain undefeated.
Yeah, I like that they brought three different decks so far, and I think that last one was the best pick they could have done there. Really nice that they also prepared this deck, and yeah, paid out. Wow, what a discard there.
Yeah, and
It's a
now
very Bubbles effect.
I'm jumping over into TheaBeasty versus AliasV here on my screen, and we are currently past turn 12 in that match. AliasV with a single Italian unit on the board, 37 HQ health, versus TheaBeasty with an established Lancaster Bomber, an established Kitty Hawk, Seaforth Highlanders, and 16 HP on the HQ. So really tight control game that is very late in the game going on there. We'll see if we can't jump on into that as soon as possible.
I'm just waiting for the radio broadcast for this type of game where it has like the 1942 radio voice as like the filter on the microphone.
Just attack the HQ with the Lancaster Bomber.
And here we have it right now. The queuing up for the game is immediately as we speak. We'll be jumping in just a moment here, right after Amaz has milled the Shuffle 8 from Trump. It's got like the weird old filter effect, like from all those Pixar movies, where it's like it's like, why does this film look so old? It's like, oh, I guess that's because it's supposed to be old. That makes sense to me. And you know these kids these days are like, what is a film like wrapped into a thing here? You mean non-digital film? You're like, yeah, that used to be a thing. We had these things called cassette tapes where they actually wrapped up inside of the cassette tape as you were going to cue it up. They're like, what the heck is a cassette tape? And you're like, oh God, these kids today. That's always what it ends up feeling like to me. I feel like I'm in that weird generational spot right now where it's like I'm just being introduced to every stage of technology that's going to exist like over the next 100 years, it feels like. And so I'm just like, I guess every 4 years I'll just adapt to a new one and be lost somewhere.
For anybody that is currently watching our broadcast while we are getting into the game, if you want to, stay up to date with what is happening right here, right now in the TheaBeasty versus AliasV, you can of course jump on over to either one of their channels and see their POVs. But TheaBeasty just drew a Rule Britannia and has a massive established board with the 1/7 Seaforth Highlanders, with the Lancaster Bomber, with a 3/2 Raft Lightning, and is currently at 16 credits for the following turn. So, man, it's a tough spot for AliasV and Flake right now.
So they're still running their countermeasure deck?
No. They're playing Brit Control now.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, they got the Sexton out. The Sexton is currently pinning the Lancaster, but man, with Tia having Ultra here is a big difference maker. See, I wish you could see what I'm seeing, but
we're not just talking for our own sake. We're trying to get the spectator set up here and into focus here. We are not just talking for the sake of hearing our own voices on this one. You can view the matchups twitch.tv and /AliasV /Amaz /TrumpSC and /TheaBeasty THEA Beasty with a Y at the end. That's how you're going to be spelling that one. So we're getting that set up right now. It looks like we are now heading into game, and so here we go.
And there you see it. There you see the board state. And just look at that. Oh, 2 Mare Nostrums, though, in hand for AliasV. I had no idea, and that could potentially be a huge game changer.
Interesting that both brought grid control now.
Ah, nice.
Ooh.
Really nice downing system there. Blocking the draw, forcing Tia into playing with this board, but unfortunately for Alias...
I think she played around it just to bring in Rule Britannia now.
Yeah, pretty powerful, I would say.
Just a scooch, just a little powerful.
I mean, you get to wipe out a 5/9 guard, and then you get to wipe out a Sexton here as well. Oops. That is about as strong of a turn as you're going to get when your opponent has a doubting system set up against your Rule Britannia turn.
Okay. I mean, some options here. Unfortunate for Alias and Flake that their Lend-Lease is costing 9 credits at the moment. It's definitely something they would have enjoyed getting, but dropping a Mare Nostrum onto that Raft Lightning and trading that into the C4 Highlanders is something that is very much possible. That's going to be what, 5 credits, and you can establish the Mosquito. You can kill the Raft Lightning, the opposing Raft Lightning on that as well, and block Lancaster from being able to hit HQ. So fairly decent turn here.
Mare Nostrum is one of my favorite cards because of the way it swings the defense on the headquarters. But that is not my favorite use of the Mare Nostrum I've ever seen, where you have to just simply trade it off so that way you don't just get mowed over by this 12 attack C4 Highlanders. You know, not happy to use it that way, but if that's the way you got to use it, that's the way you got to use it.
Yeah,
Sure,
thank you.
If I agree with killing the C4 Highlanders and not the Lancaster. Like, they should have gone with the Rough Lightning for the Lancaster. They would have gotten the heal and do the Mosquito.
Yeah.
3 damage also on the Lancaster.
Ah.
And then you have 4 attack units in your support line. That C4 Highlander's also sitting on 4 health. And no, you have 4 attack units in your support line.
Wow.
And
Oh,
look at this.
Commonwealth!
What?
Wow.
There's an ultra. There's an ultra. Will they play around
No.
it? Because
No!
Alias Flake, you have
My favorite card! No! I built so many decks around that card, and for the first time I died to Ultra, I said, why is Ultra a card?
Wow!
And then I've never seen it used against me ever again.
Look at Thea. She's almost feeling sorry here.
Wow.
Oh.
That hurt. That hurt.
I think the reason they chose to use it here was because of the fact that the Lancaster is in play, though. So going back to what Spoos had said, if they had wiped out that Lancaster, that Commonwealth in hand wouldn't have felt like it needed to be used, because if that gets increased to 13, where are you going to be able to play it?
Exactly. And that's probably their thought process. But, you know, you see that they are floating 3 credits on the other side, and you just have to figure out a way. You have to figure out a way. They have to spend their entire turn here just drawing. Just play the 12 credit Lend-Lease. It's what, 11, 16 damage.
Yeah.
I think they had to do it at this point. If they not do it there, the Lancaster and that 5/5 reduce their health to below 30, and then it's not. So I think they had to take their chance there, and unfortunately missed it.
Yeah, I agree with taking the risk in that spot. Like, your opponent has to have the Ultra. If they don't have the Ultra or Downing system set up, they lose. Full stop.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going for it in a spot like that. I mean, you're not going to get a stronger opportunity, especially given the way that the board presence was. You know, how are you going to recover from the board presence from a situation like that? I don't think it's going to happen given the context that you're in. So let it rip, and then if it happens, it happens.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, wow. But what a treat for us. I mean, we got to see an ultra block a Commonwealth, and that doesn't happen every day. You know what was the most painful thing that happened to me was when an interception, the 1 credit countermeasure, blocked my Commonwealth. It's your heart sinks. You feel so bad. My heart goes out here for Alias and Flake. Unfortunate, but
Yeah,
this is the way.
Especially
it goes.
that 1 second or that half of a second where you pull your order, release the mouse button, and then you wait, and then that sound. And you die inside. Oh, it's so painful.
That's where the experience is way too much. See, because for me, when I first had that happen, I had let the Commonwealth rip, and I was like, the game is bugged. It's not happening. And then I see the Ultra like fade into the screen, and I was like, why is this a card? Oh my gosh! What do I do?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, like, I still regularly, misplay around countermeasures, right? I mean, you know that they're there, but you don't encounter them often enough. I would say that slightly changed with the introduction of the Doubting system. You started kind of seeing countermeasures a little bit more. Before that, it was only pretty much Ultra, right?
Tells me you need to make some units that help the countermeasures out more than just this 2/2 that's getting buffed. When are we going to see some extra credit line on these countermeasures, or units that perhaps activate countermeasures from your hand as part of the deployment or destruction effect? You know, Ollie, I'm just saying, there's plenty of ways to get these countermeasures active. There's more than just spending your credits and floating for your opponent. I think there's plenty of ways to push those into the metagame if you truly want to.
Absolutely. Well, we're jumping on into game number 2 here between Alias and TheaBeasty. And it looks like they went back to the countermeasure deck, but let's see if that works here.
And look at this, the countermeasure that does fight for early game here with the Careless. That's dealing 3 damage to the next unit that your opponent plays. That's one of my favorite countermeasures, just simply because it's a strong early game presence. And you know, for me, almost everything I'm looking at when I'm playing a deck is going to be looking at early game presence, because when you start the game, you're in turn 1 and 2 land, and all the rest of the cards, they're all the way off in like turn 5 and 6 and 7 land. And we are not anywhere near there yet. So Careless Talk, being able to wipe out that first unit your opponent plays, that is a bad feeling for TheaBeasty's side. I promise you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring an interesting Japan self-discard deck. Originally, I thought it would be Japan aggro, because I thought they played this on ladder today. But, oh, look, and she found the Betty.
Wow.
With the experimental flight, you can choose to discard a card from hand and get yourself another elite airplane from Japan. But she's going for the Sayun here, okay. Just to fight this Grenadiers there.
I think it's wise to fight the Grenadiers. The Japan self-discard, this was one of the first decks I built on my own as well. It just felt like you could get so much tempo and set up some really strong turns from this. And it just felt like, this is probably about a year ago when I first stepped into the game, and this being one of the first ones I built. I mean, I haven't revisited this idea yet, but I know there's been a lot of discard stuff kind of introduced into the game since then.
Yeah, I mean, discard was extremely powerful. I mean, there was a German archetype that was all about hand manipulation, discard, blocking draws, and so on. It ended up getting nerfed because it was just so overpowering to play against. I mean, it was creating situations where you would maybe not have a turn, you know, for like 4 turns. There, you just didn't have a card, and that was just too much. So we ended up taking that and you know, getting rid of that and making it a little bit easier for players to play against that. And I'm very happy about that. And now the discarding the Betty, when it gets discarded, it goes into play. And the key 83.
Wow. Yeah. That's a sick one to be drawn right now. Now, so the question for TheaBeasty's side is next turn, are you going to be delivering damage, or are you going to be delivering board presence? And I'd say with a bolster draw, maybe a bit of both.
Since they're low on cards here, I think they should go for the E83. Oh, did Flake and Alice just decide to play the Doubting over Night Hunters?
It looks like they didn't have necessarily anything active. I'm kind of curious. What is a natural key 83 gets? That's 2 key 83s. That's not how elites are supposed to work.
No, they got it from experimental.
Yeah, I know. It's just how often do you see it from experimental and then also naturally get drawn the next turn? That's just a wacky little spot to be in.
Wow. Just redeploy, go face, or do they get rid of it with the Sendai regiment?
Yeah, you can't go face with the bomber. So the bomber's looking at, you know, do you get like maybe a pickoff here? Is it worth using the bolster here instead to wipe out this Wrath Lightning so that you can start attacking again with this little bomber unit? There's a lot going on here that I think is interesting.
I think that's a very interesting one.
Yeah, I think I like the bolster. Like, it's pretty clear that last turn your opponent played like an Ultra or a Doubting system or something else that was, you know, affecting orders rather than units. And so I feel like taking advantage of the bolster now is probably just a responsible play, given that you know you're up against a countermeasures deck.
Wow. Well, do you know what I just realized now? That TheaBeasty is having Imperious Strength in their hand.
Yeah.
You know what this card does?
You don't know?
Yeah, I know. Do you?
Oh,
Yeah, it's going to wipe out your opponent's countermeasures and deal them damage in the meantime as well. So it's a very unusual card. I've only seen it played in like burn decks before, or like as a one-of in tournament play to make sure that you can affect countermeasures like in dire situations. But I feel like this is a card that's been teched in because of what AliasV and Flake have been bringing to the table here.
I think so too. Very interesting. Just imagine turn 11, they have 3 countermeasures up, and then this thing is arriving, discarding them all.
Yeah, and then suddenly it's missing, but for countermeasures. Huh.
Oh man, that's gonna be so crazy. because I can also almost guarantee, and that plane in the back line also blocks countermeasures. So there's definitely some tech choices that have gone into these decks for this specific matchup here for Tia and Darkness. And I gotta say, I think this is where I think this is where Alias and Flake are going to run into trouble, because I don't think they realize that they've been teched against.
How could you
Double-
know?
Double key incoming.
You'd have to have seen it.
Ow.
Kind of curious what the income here is for TheaBeasty side. It's going to be Sendai Regiment first.
Oh, that was risky, honestly. They could have had Careless Talker. We saw that on turn 1.
Yeah.
And that Sendai would have done absolutely nothing.
Okay, Blackwatch.
And board pressure surmounting with no board wipe in hand.
They got double Blackwatch, but the problem is that there's only one order in hand for TheaBeasty right now, so it's not
there's
affecting a
also
lot.
There's also a bomber in play.
The Blom and Voss takes care of that.
Yeah. So fighter versus bomber, and now you have a 1/6 guard versus the rest of this.
Oh,
Oh,
the top deck.
Oh my god, the top deck.
that is destroy a unit with 2 or less attack on your opposing side. And that is a massive draw right now. That is one of the most powerful elites I think that Japan has, because of just how much tempo that can provide. And suddenly this bomber is active again, and that is not good news for AliasV.
Oh, definitely not. They're going to be able to take out the Blackwatch with the 2 planes, only taking 1 point of damage in return, move the raiding brigade up, and be happy campers at this point in time. And yeah,
Well,
there's how do you respond? I mean, entrapment, that could work.
You
But-
need like a you need a board wipe effect to be
Yeah.
drawn here.
Yeah, they need to root out the enemy.
Or a carpet?
Do they run carpet? I think they do, right? Or just
Yeah.
would
Surely
be even
they
better, yeah.
We've
Yeah.
seen at least one carpet bombing in this deck from AliasV and Flake's side.
Yeah, that would be the nut draw here. But they need to find it soon.
Are they simply not activating countermeasures, or are they forgetting to activate them? I'm kind of curious what the process is here.
Yeah, they completely forgot. I think they just gave up.
You can't activate countermeasures with the Scion on field, the 3/1 fighter there.
Oh, you're
it-
right.
it
That's exactly
blocks
what it
enemy
is.
Countermeasures. So that's what I was saying with the tech, right? They got a full hand of cards that they cannot use because of that one plane, and that's why we don't see a lot of countermeasure decks. But that root out could, of
Root
course,
out.
change a whole host of stuff.
Now I'm looking at that. I don't even remember what the name of this card is. It costs 5 now, but it originally cost 1. It wipes out your opponent's countermeasures that are established and deals 2 damage. Your opponent doesn't have to have
Strength.
countermeasures. Yeah, that one. It doesn't have to have countermeasures active to deal that 2 damage, which is why I think you can play it. Yeah, Imperial Strength. That's the name of that order. But this is potential disaster right here.
Yeah, this is going to be painful.
Oh boy.
Annihilation. Are they going for their Imperial Strength here, or?
I mean, I would expect so.
Your opponent just floated 6 credits. Yep. That's bad news.
It's bad news, Bears.
Oh. Ouch.
Yeah, that reaction, that's expected.
Again,
to 3.
You know, you can have a lot of fun with these countermeasure decks somewhere in the middle of the ladder, but when you're facing off against, someone that has darkness sitting behind them or bubbles sitting behind them, they know what these countermeasures do. They're going to be able to play around them. And
Annihilation going on here, so you're able to wipe this thing out. Opponent discards a card, and you have C4th Highlanders, where you're hoping it sticks to the table to block for at least 1 turn, and then trying to win the game from there afterwards. So I think potential to claw back, Spoos.
Yeah, but there's the privateer waiting, a 4/4 bomber with 1 heavy armor. And they also found
Bombing
the
gets
bolster
drawn?
now.
Yeah, the bolster
And-
cuts into this ability.
Yeah, but they don't have answers against the privateer. Once this is on the board, I think the game is over.
yeah, I mean, Bolster is going to make this an 8/7. It's going to take him down to
Yikes.
1 HP. I don't know. They might have some sort of one-cost unit in their deck that could be drawn by the Dina. I don't know if they have anything that could do some form of damage or secure that threat, but I don't think they have to worry about it too much. There is a carpet bomb, however, in the hand here for
bombing ray
Alias.
gets wiped out. Can they climb back here?
Oh no, they cannot.
Can they handle the bomber?
No.
They
Unfortunately
really
not.
needed entrapment, right? If they had entrapment still. Oh wait, they can.
Oh no, this is
No,
not
it doesn't have blitz.
Doesn't have
Oh,
blitz?
it doesn't have blitz.
Oh, so close, almost.
Really, really close. That counter that
They don't
carpet
trap
bomb.
me.
Wait, can you
That
draw a
would be-
counterattack?
Okay. Oh, no.
No.
Unfortunate. They really needed that entrapment to
This
stick
is
in their
so
hand.
close. This is like right on the verge of a recovery.
They should not. Okay, it doesn't matter because I think they should not have drawn and maybe left that entrapment there. I don't know.
I think your opponent's going to try to call the bluff either way.
Yeah.
And there it is.
That was a game. Excellent effort there from Alias and Flake, but Tia and Darkness come out victorious from that one. And yeah, while we were talking, I believe Trump and Amaz were starting their second best out of 3, so go over to their channels and check that out. We're going to go on to a quick little break here on the red zone, just in a few seconds while we go and get some refreshments and make sure that our voices are fine-tuned for your smooth listening needs moving forward. Don't go anywhere. If you do go anywhere, go to one of the 4 channels that are currently streaming this event. That is Alias, TrumpSC, Amaz, and TheaBeasty. They are all located under the cards category. And if you have some time in between matches on the stream, then jump into game and enjoy the double XP weekend that is going on. So we'll see you right after this. All right, and we are back here, and we're jumping straight on into the match. And this is the second round robin best out of 3 here between TheaBeasty and AliasV. TheaBeasty being coached on by Darkness, AliasV having Flake there in person in her corner. Do you think, Admirable, now you know Flake pretty well. Do you think having him next to you is more of a help or just a distraction? Because he can be a jolly, entertaining little person sometimes, you know?
Flake is always a tremendous help. Very often I'm trying to think about like what I don't enjoy most often about people, and Flake has just really helped me do that the most, I would say. No, seriously though, Flake is just awesome. He's like one of the most like fun folks I've just ever hung out with, and it's just him and we grew up like in the same cultural aspect of things. And so if you grew up anywhere in the 90s, anywhere even close to the United States, we have a ton of stupid stuff to say that's kind of funny, and we love hearing it as well. And so that's just, for Flake, he's just, I feel like for Flake and AliasV, they just get along well. They both have the same witty style of mind, and it just melds perfectly together.
I definitely agree, and here we see a pretty mighty board being developed by Alias and Flake with 2 first commandos on field, and if they deal damage to anything, that unit dies. So, I mean, a pretty scary front line to be facing down right now. That we can do it is not even going to help you keep something alive. So, What are you looking for TheaBeasty doing here, Spoos?
First of all, they could deploy the Privateer. That is the most left card in their hand. It's a 4/4 bomber with heavy armor 1. None of their of Alias and Flake's units can deal damage to it, because that commando is only killing a unit that is dealing damage to. And with heavy armor 1, that bomber is not taking damage. So that would be the first step. Second, I think they have to find Seaborn Invasion to reconquer that support line, that front line, and maybe some carpet bombings to get rid of these commandos so they can deploy units that don't have heavy armor, and so they don't die to these commandos. So they start with strategic, make them lose 1 credit slot, get rid of that commando in the front line there, and a Blackwatch to guard their HQ.
Yeah, I mean, that Blackwatch is going to be fairly short-lived, I would expect. To see that #1 commando take that out.
Also, the 593rd Jasco here, preventing 1 damage to your headquarters from all sources.
Oh, the Jasco, when you can establish the Jasco early, and if it manages to survive throughout the game, it can save you so much HP. It is not even funny. I've seen games won and lost over when you get Jasco out.
Yeah.
So Thea finding that now is pretty good. It's gonna get bounced back to hand, but only costs 1 credit to deploy, and I mean they're sitting on 12 credits already.
Yeah, the thing that I have most enjoyed about the 593rd Jasco is when you're playing against the Japan aggro decks, and they have their little 1-cost elite unit, and you just start wiping it out every single hit from that unit because of the Jasco. I'm just like, oh yes, this truly was the counter to this.
Yeah, it actually is.
Yep. You know what's the best thing? When the opponent has a bicycle regiment or 2 established in the front line and you have a Jasco, and you're just like, I don't care if you got 2 Fury units up on me, don't do nothing. I love it.
Ooh, mass deployment getting found here as well from TheaBeasty side. They have 13 credits up as well. So 1 over the natural tick from this 10-cost elite that's been introduced to the game, where you summon units into the back line that just total up the amount of credits you have. Like, this is such an insanely potentially powerful card. I feel like when you start getting to the very, very end stages of the game and you just have a ton of credits that are available to you, suddenly this 10-cost card just becomes so much more powerful.
Yeah, especially because there's the option to get 2 blitz units out of it. The Pershing, that 8/8 tank, and the B-17F, that 6/6 bomber. That can be really huge. Plus additional 2 other units for 10 credits. That's good value. When you get, I think it's most worth when you are around 16 credits and find a good spot to play it. It can be hard for your opponent to deal with it.
Sexton's going to tie up this bomber for a bit here.
I could like that.
Yep, start delivering some damage. Here's some mass deployment for you. Mass deploying some damage.
Because that Sexton is going to continue to pin that unit until that Sexton gets removed, right? So I really like pinning that Privateer, because it is one that is kind of hard to deal with for Alias and Flake at the moment.
Do I remember correctly that there was a time where Sexton had smokescreen?
Yes.
Oh, that was a nasty time.
It's
You
like
are
RP,
remembering correctly.
ridiculously strong card.
I mean, there are definite moments in the history of cards where, like, if you see that card today, you're just like, what were you smoking when you made that card, right?
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, the game was definitely in a kind of there were bigger power cards at some point that were just absolutely crazy. But I really like the state of the game as it is right now. I think we're in a pretty kind of well balanced meta. We just had a balance patch that kind of addressed some of the more overpowered and overpowering decks that you could face on the ladder, and whenever we do that, I'm super excited to see what the players come up with, because they normally prove us wrong within like the next month and find that other deck that dominates everything.
Wow, there's a lot going on this turn. Spoos, I need to hear your opinion on this, because there are so many different angles of attack here that my mind is getting boggled.
I mean, it's looking not good for Thea and Darkness here, honestly. They don't have lot of stuff to get rid of all of these threats there on the board. They have a high altitude bombing, that 8K order that kills 2 random units. If you hit the wrong one, then you're still facing 8 base damage here next turn. Ooh, I don't see how they come back here, honestly. Maybe with a Seaborn, pushing all units back into enemy's support line.
Yeah.
But everything else, ooh, I don't know. Especially with that Ultra also flooding around there now. They cannot even play the mass deployment. And that Privateer just sitting there pinned forever. I think it's hard to come back here.
I mean, they could do like proc the Ultra with their research and then play the mass deployment, but I don't know if that serves them any real purpose. I think you have to play the high altitude bombing here just to get rid of 2 of these threats off the board and hope that it hits the Sexton so your Privateer becomes viable to use again.
I agree. I really like the face cams. That's gives us so much more emotions of these games.
Yes.
Like
I
look
spent
how-
about 50% of the game just looking at the cameras.
Yeah,
Yes.
how they are discussing and arguing. That's really interesting to see. Okay.
I mean, I love seeing all these beautiful, pretty faces.
go.
And there we go. High altitude bombing. What is going to hit? It.
Oh no.
Oh, that has
Oh
been the
no,
worst
those are the
option.
worst 2.
Yeah, really the worst too.
Another Raft Lightning can bounce that Privateer as
Wait,
well.
That's
I
lethal,
mean,
yeah.
It's lethal. It's lethal.
Oh, yeah,
no,
it's lethal.
No, there's Jesco on the board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you bounce the
Forgot
Jesco,
about-
right?
Oh, we can bounce it with this. Oh yeah, it's lethal now.
There we go. And that is lethal.
Poor
Alias.
Jasco.
Alias
the first
V?
win for them?
Yeah, I think it is. But I mean, I gotta give them massive credits because you're dealing with Tia there with darkness in their corner, and taking that win is a huge accomplishment for Alias and Flake. And you know, we talked about it before this event. Flake is our least experienced coach, but he is very much a valued member of the community, and Alias is great friend, and of course, like you see, amazing character. We just love seeing him on screen there. But they just took a game effectively off Darkness and Tia. That's awesome. That's like so
that's a
well
win.
done. That's a win.
That's almost a win, like for the whole series. I mean, beating Darkness and Thea, they have won. No, they lost against Amaz and Bubbles, but they show some really nice games so far and show that they know what they're doing, and yeah, taking one game from them is impressive enough to break around with it, I guess.
Yeah, and we are coming up on the tail end of the event. We are running slightly behind schedule because some of these games were a little bit longer than we expected.
A little bit longer.
Trumpets go.
Just a tiny bit longer. Is that it, Ollie? Just you got a few moments maybe. Game one lasted felt like 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? I love that. What I love about that is that it shows that all of these people are here to play. None of them are here to just go and like, oh, I don't care if I win this. I don't care if no, they're all here to play. They're all here to win.
Yeah.
And now we see Alias and Flake bringing their Brit deck again, having found success with it. They have given up and abandoned on the countermeasure deck. We're not seeing it in this best out of 3 at least.
They're going for a big win here. I like this too. I've always liked the Britain Italy deck. Just because it feels like it has just strong cards in general. Like it's less reliant on synergy and it's more reliant on just how your cards are lining up against your opponent. And with Churchill being kind of added to the mix here, you got a 7 credit unit that is a 5/7 with heavy armor. It's a tank and it returns all your opposing ground units into retreat or to the hand. Is it retreat or hand? I don't know.
It's retreat, yeah.
Yeah, so it retreats all of your opponent's all enemy ground units. It's a 5/7 heavy armor tank. That is a massive card, and this kind of like is demonstrating like what the core concept I think of like the Britain cards are, is that they're very strong in general. They have synergy opportunities with them, but they're not focused on having their synergy in order to be powerful. They're just potent depending on how they line up against your opponent.
Yeah, Britain was very popular in the early stages of the games because the elites have been really, really powerful. And you can play a lot of stuff with Britain. You have the commando theme, you have the control theme, you have airplane theme. So Britons are also very versatile. And if you queue into an opponent and see that he's playing Brits, you usually don't know what to expect. It can be an aggressive air list or it can be a heavy control list, and that is very hard to mulligan against it. And therefore, makes Britain, in my opinion, the most versatile faction in that game.
It also makes it difficult to build in terms of consideration. Like if you're trying to build a deck that's trying to fight against Britain, how do you fight against both strategies potentially from one angle? Yeah. If you don't know what you're queuing against, you're going to have to make a call at some point, and it's one of the reasons why I think that taking trying to take the initiative yourself is an important angle. Like, forget trying to counter your opponent, just play some good stuff.
Look at this, but both sides here almost having the same start. Both have a guard up, one honey, one commando.
Yeah, the Sexton getting active here, though. Shuts down the Mosquito.
Yeah, I really like this. Really like this Sexton play. I think it's a perfect turn. I think it's a great card for them to play exactly at this point. And I think with the Mare Nostrum in hand, they can start forcing some tempo, making that a 4/5 that heals them whenever it attacks, and they can start raining down fire on all the other units on board.
Yeah, it kind of creates like a little inevitability engine when you load that up with Mare Nostrum, right? You're just getting so far ahead on HQ life totals that if your cards go even the entire time, the player with more HQ defense is going to win that game. And so I think that for Tea's side, that doing this little bit of ramp here, very important, and then start marching forward. So now with no commando on AliasV's side, they're going to have to figure out a way to fight against this, because right now that little 1/3, it's threatening to wipe out that Seaforth Highlander right away.
You just kill it with the Sexton. Sexton ignores guard. It's an artillery.
Yeah,
So
but
boom.
you want to wipe out the Mosquito.
It's pinned.
It's pinned forever.
It's perma-pinned until we kill the Sexton. And I think the big concern here, and of course we know this, but Alias doesn't know this, and maybe they figure this out, is they need to establish that fiat before the next turn, because the Lancaster bomber in the hand of Thea is going to be able to come out and kill that Sexton, free up that Mosquito, and really turn that game upside down and give Thea the kind of current edge if this turn continues as is.
Yeah, they really need to play it. And they did.
Yeah, perfect.
Ooh, they didn't play it guarded though.
It won't matter because they need exactly 10 credits to be able to deploy it and operate it. So if Thea was to spend credits by killing it with the Blackwatch and the honey, it would just backfire. And
Yeah,
also, whenever you attack
turn, right?
Look, whenever you attack it, just heal.
Yeah, I think I would prefer to play it on the right side of the Seaforth Highlanders.
Yeah, I'm less worried about my headquarter defense at that
Yeah.
point, and I'm much more worried about protecting units against that side. So the honey going to get wiped out here as well by the Kitty Hawk. Oh no, they're heading for the Sexton here instead. So they're trying to threaten the Sexton in a different manner here. And for the War Machines have a tough time getting played right now because you're heading into 11 naturally next turn. And so you're trying to have these War Machines actually do something. It's when you don't stop at 12 credits in this game, the game stops giving you a credit line at 12. And so once you're at 12, your extra credit lines, they go above that. So you're going to go to 13, you're going to go to 14, etc. with these ramp cards. You don't just get to cycle them and draw a card because you reached your max in this one.
I mean,
Still holding on to the Mare Nostrum as well here on AliasV's side. I think the Blackwatch here is looking pretty nice as well. I think you get a little bit of a value trade here from this honey, but you don't have the credit line to do exactly what you want. So just keep the Mosquito pin. Say, go ahead. You're winning from this spot. Why do more?
Exactly. And I mean, look at the hand size from Thea. It's 3 cards. I mean, it's not the most threatening hand.
Ooh.
It is now 6 cards. Unless you want to play the Lancaster.
Do
I
you?
think the Lancaster actually makes sense here because you get to unpin your 4/4 in that manner as well. But it might just be smarter to look for AoE cards in a spot like this. Like, just try to get as much stuff as you can. That's a nice guard unit to find. I think at this point.
HMS Illustrious. Yeah.
So you're using that to wipe out the Sexton instead? Yeah, it makes sense because those units get blitz. And now your Lancaster's open for doing what it wants to do, which is hit the headquarters.
Exactly. And I mean, oh, what a top
Ooh.
deck. I was just about to talk about the La Decima, and how important that would be if Tia did establish that Lancaster, but that Monty off the top just throws it into an entirely different direction because now you have so much time to play with.
Yeah, Monty pins the unit, or pins all opposing units, but if they have 3 units in play, you get to draw a card as well. That is probably just one of my favorite cards in the game because of how much more powerful it gets because your opponent has stuff in play. Blackwatch here. That also makes these war machines a bit harder to use. You have to like fully commit your turn to going above the 12 credit line now. A 31 as well on AliasV side. So now we have to think about Commonwealth and how that is actually active.
The Pioneer Company is actually a pretty good draw, but the temptation here is definitely to use the Lancaster. It could be interesting to see if they are able to resist that temptation. It looks like they are. That's great. Protecting their bombers as well. That's a very interesting strategy.
Yeah, going for a pair of war machines here as well. Start extending that credit line. Working towards mass deployment. Or, excuse me, not mass deployment. Excuse me. I completely retract what I just said there.
Britannia, right?
Yeah, Rule Britannia. There we go.
Yeah, very unfortunate that Theo did not find their war machines early in the game. As we see now, later it's not doing a lot for your way to deal with the board. And there, this might give play, and it's just too big of an advantage here. And look what they have left in hand. They have 2 Lion for a day, which just kill any unit that has 4 or more attack. And is it
And
4 or
Lion,
less?
4 more. And Lion for a Day also works on the Seaforth Highlanders because when it's your turn, the Seaforth Highlanders are packing 4 attacks. So they actually become vulnerable for the Lion for a Day on the opposing turn.
That honey has restored has put a lot of health on the headquarters, I will say. That little 2-3 has done a tremendous amount of work for establishing a very comfortable defense headquarter situation. So again, trying to defend.
I mean, I'm fairly sure that what Darkness is saying right now is that we really need to watch out for these La Decimas. We can't just give them an opportunity to snipe out the Lancaster immediately after we deploy it. We need to have it work for us, for a couple of turns and be able to hit the HQ and start bricking their hand. And I think all of those things are kind of going through the mind right now of Tia and Darkness. Meanwhile, Alias and Flake, they're just sitting pretty. They have a full hand, of cards. They got 2 Marinostrums. They got a La Decima, 2 Lions for a Day. They have everything they might possibly want, and they even got a Lancaster bomber of their own.
Yeah, it takes a long time to operate all of this, but it definitely is here. And so wiping out the Seaforth Highlanders doesn't seem like the appeal right now. It feels to me like it's making sure your opponent doesn't have threats in play.
I think you just pass. No need to do anything else.
Looks tough to do anything else. The rest of your decisions kind of feel like liabilities. Again, eliminate threats, and that's how you seem to intend to win the game from AliasV's perspective right now. Whoop. Now that's a situation though where Rule Britannia wants to get played to kind of end the game. Not really played as like a let's see if this pushes me forward sort of situation, because when you use this card to try to just push yourself forward, that's when the Lions come out and suddenly you're not as happy about the situation.
Yeah, I mean, they would have 2 9/9s, but okay. I mean, I like this ordering because it gives them an extra unit.
Yeah,
they're going to be able to move one of these guys up into the front line because of the 3/3 stat line on the bomber there.
push one forward. Yeah, 9/9 is looking kind of scary, but again, that's what these Lions for a Day end up taking care of.
Yeah.
Only one can be used this turn though. Oh.
Yeah, but the other one isn't a threat since it's an infantry unit, and infantry units can only move one. Can only move or attack. This Seaforth Highlanders has to move to the front line next turn first and can only effective turn after that. So there's a lot of time to just use it on its next turn.
Yeah, really heavy foresight here, I imagine, on TheaBeasty and Darkness's side as well, holding on to this other War Machine to perhaps counter an Ultra that's going to be put into place at some point.
Okay, this is an interesting one. That Raft Lightning allows them to operate that bomber and deal damage with it this turn if they bounce the enemy Raft Lightning. But then they're just giving them a bounce right back. So they need to be able to also move all of their units out from the risk of being bounced back.
Yeah.
I actually
Honestly,
think
this feels like a full frontline situation here.
yeah, I was about to say, I think that 6/6 Pioneer Company might actually come into play here and be pretty important.
Yeah, I think the bomber can move forward too as well. It just moves next to the C4th Highlander, so that way it's protected from like Raft Lightning kind of stuff as well. I'm just going to start attacking. Wiping out the La Decima.
Yeah, trying to get past the ambush, it looks like.
Yeah, ambush isn't a huge effect, I would say, against this this kind of board. And so now, for AliasV side, they're going to have to, figure out a way to check this 12-5. And you also, it's an expensive credit line to be operating, but when your opponent's 14 credits, it doesn't feel as expensive. That 6/6 is, it costs 4 credits to operate, but it's still a 6/6 at this point, and there's not a ton going on in the rest of the game. Into a complicated spot here. I love the camera perspective too. The way the focus, the background ends up working is just these massive focuses from the players at this point. Marty Nostrum comes into effect. It's guarded right now by the La Decima.
I mean, that was pretty big. I'm looking at the credit line, and I think Tia could definitely take out that Lancaster if she wished.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, definitely. Now that carpet bomb actually huge. And again, look at those Pioneer companies in the front line. I mean, it's a 6/6. I mean, it's no joke. It does damage. It does pressure. Sure, it costs 4 credits to operate, but she has 14 credits every turn. They're not even spending all their credits.
Yeah, I mean, you can also just wipe it up as the bomber attack and then attacking the Lancaster right afterwards as well. This feels like a pretty tough spot to be in right now, where it's very low commitment of resources.
I mean, there are so many people that would not have played the Pioneer Company there before the Rule Britannia play, and you're seeing how important that unit is now. I mean, it's the reason why they were able to take out that Lancaster without spending the carpet bomb.
You have time to start researching here as well if you'd like.
I think they go for double lightning, yeah.
Yeah, double lightning works as well. That's pretty powerful.
Against the bomber, and the other rough lightning cannot really kill any of those.
Ooh. Very powerful draw. Just wipes out an opposing unit.
I like how those 2 Raft Lightnings were like, you, Pioneer Company, take a step back. Another step back. Yeah, you just go back to where you came from. It was a very aggressive turn.
Oh.
I really like how Tier and Darkness came back here. A few turns ago, they just had 1 unit on board and sitting on 3 War Machines. And I think they got the most value out of their stuff. The Rule Britannia also helped a lot, I guess, but really impressive how they fight back and suddenly are back in the game.
This is a really good game that we're watching right now.
Yeah.
So is it Lancaster time? You've seen 2 Lions for a day? You've seen your opponent use a lot of their removal. It's time. And that's ticking up the cost of all these things in hand.
They don't have an answer against it. The Churchill is not retreating air units. Kitty Hawk can also only target ground units. What are they doing against this Lancaster? Ooh,
That's a pretty good one.
That's a pretty good one, I agree.
Question is, what do you take out here? I think you take out the Raft. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Take back your front line with the C4th Islanders.
Yeah, you're also protecting the back line with that Mosquito.
Yeah.
Lancaster has to trade into it.
I think the C4th taking a step forward here is a great idea. Gonna choose to stay with the guard.
I think they're looking to protect it because otherwise the Lancaster could just go into the front line and deal 5 free damage to it. Putting it into carpet bomb range, for instance. But I don't hate it. I don't hate moving it up either. But I think you put yourself in maybe a tough situation.
Just why give the 5 damage away for free when you can just completely negate it by not moving forward for a turn? Makes sense. Pretty tough spot here on both sides. I mean, the resource management has certainly become a key factor. And when I'm looking at the two hands right now, I'm seeing research in one hand and not in the other.
Yeah, but what would you research for here?
I'm going for the big one.
The Bletchley. I think Bletchley is after the nerf. I'm not sure who had the idea of nerfing it this way. It's only giving units that cost 5 or less back to the opponent's deck.
Yeah. So kind of the way I'm seeing it is that it's a tempo effect, right? Like you're just driving garbage things that your opponent clearly doesn't want to use back on top of their deck so that they're not drawing their good stuff.
Yeah, but in late game, your opponent is usually having big units on board, and Bletchley is not really affecting these. So I'm not sure if I like this. I would prefer go for synthetic rubber, play it on a C4 Highlanders once it's in the front line, and try to get more value out of this way.
It makes sense. Good. Could you try to use it on the Blackwatch as well? Just takes time.
Yep, I agree. That's probably the best target you want to do it on.
The problem here then is going to be that little 1/3. I think it's just a poisonous effect. It's going to wipe out anything that touches his front line right now. But I feel like you're going to have to sacrifice something. It can't hit the heavy armor is, I think, an important note. Like the heavy armor negates the effect on it.
Yeah.
And so this Churchill is a pretty massive threat at this moment.
Yeah, they should not move the C4 Highlanders. Just let it there. Just Commander
Name a Blackwatch down? Or just Ultra?
Oh. I think I prefer Blackwatch here over Ultra. Because double carpet bombing is not killing your board. There's still that Churchill in the front line sitting. Found Landlease. They really need another B17 or Avenger here.
Yeah. You need 4 extra cards. That's what it sounds like to me you need.
Yeah, anything than 2 carpet bombings is good here.
Yeah, so they didn't need to play around the Ultra in this spot unless the Ultra got drawn recently. So this is a pretty responsible play that's made. I mean, like they're saying that if that one card that was drawn on the right side was an Ultra, that could have ruined the day. So choosing to play around the Ultra shows you the deliberate decisiveness that Darkness has in mind. It's play around everything if you can. Yeah, why take the risk if you don't have to? Wow, that's a big one.
On 2 big guard units here. And there's
I feel like shelling here is offering possibility as well. Like you're using a shelling just to simply stop the commando for a turn. It lets you move both things forward and then threaten the synthetic rubber.
Oh yeah. Sounds
also just synthetic rubber right away. It's open, so take it. That's a massive Churchill now.
But it's pinned. It might have been a waste.
How do you wipe it out though? Like from the opposing side, like what does the British deck do that actually wipes it out? It requires like a B17, right?
I mean, first of all, they can play double Grenadier Guards and guard their HQ. But yeah, I agree. They need to find answers soon that deal with this unit.
Yeah, just get it out of the way so that we don't have to worry about like an Ultra on your side.
Hui.
This game's getting very complex quick. It's been complex at multiple points in this game, and it's just again getting complex. Yeah, so this is 2 5/9s and set up the Ultra.
Double Ultra on both sides now each turn.
And the La Decima feels like it's a pretty big play here.
Yeah, kill one of the guards with La Decima. Kill the other one with the 11/11. And then you could also, since synthetic rubber was already played, there's no need, I guess, to move the guards to the front line and risk them to be eaten by the commando. Look how they're discussing the line here.
Also, the idea that like maybe you could just kind of leave your opponent's line in play as well. Like you could just keep them from deploying units at all by using a shelling. That's kind of like the perspective that you have. That's going to wipe out the Ultra. Ooh, Churchill gets drawn on the other side.
Yeah, this game is far from over here. 7. It's still at 7 health. Holy moly.
Yeah, it's pretty big. You do have the option. You do have a way to wipe this out now, though. You could just attack with a 5/9 and then use carpet bombing.
But there's credits floating on the opponent's side, so
Your story?
maybe it's a better play to just drop the Churchill here, but then you risk that your opponent is redeploying that Blackwatch, huh? Ugh, I don't want to be in Thea's position here.
It's a really tough spot to be in, but I think they might be favored. I'm looking at deck size at this point, too, to try to draw something in that spot. It feels like deck size is a big deal at this point as well. So now you can clog this front line if you want to from Tia's side.
Go for shelling here.
So they could maybe go for Blackwatch. Wow. Both ultras on both sides were used on shelling. What are the odds of that?
But now they can research for free here. Maybe they can make themselves an 11-11 Churchill. So, Flag and Alias are also playing Commonwealth, right? They just need to find it. Ultra is gone. Ooh, that Churchill.
Sniped away.
Short life here. Back to the front line.
Back to the front line. Yeah, it's a scary unit. But you know that stuff like Doubting System's gone. Lend-Lease right now does not look very appealing as you're running out of deck size at this point.
I just got to jump in here and I got to compliment both of these teams. I mean, this is a deep strategic control mirror matchup right here, and both players, both sides are playing exceptionally. So this is a joy to watch.
Absolutely, it's like chess, right? Like watching a chess game.
Oh, there's just so much going on. I really feel like that if you have Commonwealth in your deck in a situation like this, that has to be the massive edge that takes place. There's been so little damage being able to be delivered from Tia's side.
I think they're just waiting for it. Otherwise, they play so much heal that it would not make sense to not play Commonwealth in this deck. So at some point, I think they just find it and win that match.
Yeah, we saw Commonwealth earlier. It got hit by Ultra. Ultra's out of the way. I think it's a pretty easy... Oh, what is this? Interesting. 6 credits floated.
Yeah, I think they don't want to play more into this commando that's sitting around there.
Look, you can just attack it with your guard, yeah?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they kept it for.
Well, the headquarters is getting picked down to 29 now.
Yeah, they really should have... What's that guard supposed to do? I mean, they really should have killed it.
I mean, it has ambush, so it's just kind of annoying.
Yeah, but 1 HP, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the body isn't the important part of La de Chima. It's a nice thing to have, but really it's there to wipe out your opponent's back line.
All these guards, look how many guards they have left in their hand alone. There's 2 more waiting.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to chew through this spot.
Here, almost, I think they don't want to play a Lend-Lease here, and they don't want to play a mobilization. I think they only have 4 or 5 cards left.
You're going into a big spot here, though. Like, this is a massive Fury unit that's getting created now.
There is the synthetic rubber on the black watch.
That's taking out the 1-6. The commando here is going to be wiping out the 3-7.
And then FaceTime.
Hello, yes. This is 10 damage speaking.
Boom. Also setting up lethal here. I mean, they have 2 guards left.
They're going for the mobilize too. They're trying to just draw the opportunity to counter whatever's been done in terms of the guard side, and they find a Wrath
Look at
Lightning.
this. If they are lucky enough. I mean, it's 50-50 that they have lethal next turn. I mean, no, that Fiat probably going to attack here for the heal. But they can bounce with the lightning, one of the guards, and then it's 50-50 that B17 is killing the other one.
They go to 21, so just outside the range of what lethal would be in that spot.
They might win.
That's the last card for Tia. Sexton is the one drawn, and that's a big threat as well.
Look at this. Tia might win this one.
This needs to hit one of these guard units. It does not.
No.
However, Alias and Flake, they're kind of just out of stuff that's fighting against this right now. So you have to be able to fend off this unit at the moment. So the Rap's going to put this 5-9 back in hand, and I think the Sexton should just shut down this last unit, maybe? Nope, they want to deliver the damage. 10 more. I don't blame them.
What a match. Wow.
Carpet bombing gets drawn.
Not doing anything.
This is a deploy and hope.
I mean, also that you deploy the guard and the feared, which is...
Whoa!
Why? Why would they surrender at this point?
It looks like they just didn't see a way out of that situation. And man, Tia and Darkness fighting tooth and nail to get back into that game.
Impressive game.
It's really like
nice back and forth, and in the end, Tia and Darkness just get the most value out of their cards, I guess.
Yeah.
Just felt like timing was everything in terms of the mechanism of attack. Like when they timed that attack felt so important because they drove so many resources out of the hands of Alias and Flake in that situation, just trying to create some pressure that demanded attention. And then suddenly that opens it up to synthetic rubber being unchecked. And it went unchecked for a couple turns, and that was enough to end the game. Just pretty crazy.
Oh,
they go back to it. They go back to it.
with a countermeasure deck.
I think that this is the matchup where the countermeasures actually have the most impact as well, because your opponent has a lot of just high-cost things that take place. It's like where the doubting system ends up getting the most value. It's like where the night hunts get the most value as well.
That's true. That's true. And I mean, a well-timed entrapment as well could very much snowball it. I think the downfall of this countermeasure deck from Alias and Flake is that it lacks a little bit more control, right? If you had a little bit more ability to control maybe a few more guard units, a few more units, a little bit less heavy on the countermeasures, but just pick the countermeasures as a kind of strategic option throughout the game, I think this deck will do pretty well.
It's a big disadvantage early. War Machine plus an hour of need. 3 extra credits for Tia and Darkness.
Did they activate missing last turn?
It was from the deep, I believe. I think it was from the deep is what they used.
It was from the deep. Okay.
Doubting wouldn't have stopped the in hour of need because of the little tiny 0-1 there that's reducing the cost of all those orders on your side.
3. Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
So
that's
kind of crazy just how powerful that little thing is.
You know what? Like having a Pioneer to drop on turn 1 against the German countermeasure deck that you know is running Careless Talks is feels really satisfying because you're like, I know this won't kill it, and it feels really good to burn that countermeasure.
Yeah. And the opponent losing a card, you're not losing the unit. Really nice. Was that a honey?
Yep, honey got dropped by From the Deep, but Oh, and they're dropping the missing as well with the swordfish. That is exceptional high IQ play there by Tia.
This shows that they really know what they expect from their opponents. Not just they had 7 credits last turn. I think 80% of the players and probably 100% of the new players would have dropped the Grenadier Guard Star there for 6 credits
Yeah.
and run straight into that from the deep. But no, they know they play a countermeasure deck. They probably have that one. Play the honey first. Played the HMS. Moved the bomber to the front line. They knew exactly what countermeasures they had up. And I think Flade and Alias are just sitting there and thinking, oh my god, can they see our hand or what?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it feels that way when you get exceptionally well played around, like it happened there. I was gonna say maybe they would have wanted to play the Seaforth Highlanders instead of doing the doubting system, because there's not a whole lot of orders that are likely to come out on that turn from Tia, but it would have ended up back in their hand anyway with the Raft Lightning bouncing it. So, not a huge deal.
Nice missing draw here. Let you Seaforth Highlanders and play the missing. The issue with the Seaforth Highlanders, I always thought was just going to be the tempo stuff. Like your opponent hitting a Raft Lightning, they're probably going to play that anyway if they have it in hand. Activating Churchill for your opponent on the previous turn. I feel like that's really the big difference. If you play Seaforth Highlander on the previous turn, your opponent has an opening for Churchill in a spot like that. You go for Seaforth Highlanders here with a missing, and suddenly it doesn't look quite the same.
Exactly. I think the downside here is that it's unlikely that somebody is going to try and take the front line with 2 planes established there in the back line. But there we go. There's the Churchill throwing it back into hand and attack face. Now, next turn, however, the missing might very, very well come into play.
Feels kind of tough.
I think
Just taking too much chip damage here.
What? No, they're just playing with them. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I think they
might be playing them a bit too much here. This annihilation is a major play right now. They're not going to go for it though.
Oh, but the envelope. They found the envelope, and I think this is the first game they actually find the envelope in a pretty decent spot. So now you gotta think. All right, what do we want to do here? I quite like. Kind of hard to play doubting and play nothing else, and you don't want to play envelop without some units in the front line. So I'm more leaning towards playing Seaforth and some careless talk, and then just passing the turn.
I kind of like the doubting envelop because your opponent is also having to consider entrapment as well. And so if entrapment is one of the things you have to think about here, that means attacking with the 1/3 is a very inviting line.
Oh, but look at that top deck, the B-17.
Yeah, that's just massive.
It's not going to get killed. Oh, and
Lancaster's pretty massive too, honestly.
Yeah.
Just gets to bypass this. Ooh, down to 1. Not quite. And that hand getting increased seems rough.
Now at 8 credits, the Annihilation.
They can only do it on the Pioneers or the Swordfish.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like a wasted turn. There's still 2 5 attack units waiting. I like these emotes.
By the way, I am super pumped to report that we have seen a large number of new players joining the Cards community throughout this event today. And if you are new and you're hanging out in chat, any chat, come say hello. Let us know that you're new. Ask questions. The entire community, myself, and everyone else are here to help you and support you on your journey. And thank you so much for giving our game a chance. We hope that you enjoy it, and we love having you as a part of the Cards community.
Also a great time to just get involved. Double XP.
Exactly. I mean, that's the only downside of today is that we haven't been able to grind the double XP. That's the only thing that like I came to the office 2 hours before the broadcast because I was going to do like a warm-up stream because I really wanted to grind the double XP. But then a bunch of stuff happened and we had to set up for the broadcast and I wasn't able to do it. But tomorrow the grind commences.
Oh, the grind here is commencing as well. There's a lot of stuff being driven home on Taya and Darkness's side, where just this Lancaster just it creates the gap even further every single turn that thing gets to attack. Not only are you taking the 5 damage, but the cost of your hands getting increased as well. It's such a difficult situation to be in.
Could have also thought about dropping the Onissa here to protect against the Lancaster. Let Lancaster just phase again and do
You know what,
nothing
guys?
else.
I feel like we've been talking so much. I've been talking so much about the cup of coffee today that the next 3 giveaways are going to be for a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Mess
Okay,
Hall Scraps in chat to join in.
Let me enter the giveaway here. I need that cup of coffee.
Spoos is truly the EV player.
Oh,
Yeah.
and there it is, the surrender coming out, and the game is done, and the series is done. Tia and Darkness win out against Alias and Flake, but Alias and Flake did not go down without a fight for this one. So I'm super proud. I feel like they've made progress. You know, I feel like they're doing good.
Yeah, they should stop bringing their countermeasure deck, and then they are in a good spot to win a series here.
Yeah, and just play Britain. You know, eventually it'll work.
Just play Britain. Eventually it'll work. That's kind of where my head has been introduced into the game as well. Just play Britain.
Yeah. All right. Well, I believe we have one more best out of 3 coming up between these two teams, or not these two teams, but between the teams, 2 teams each. We're planning to get them into game as fast as possible. Like I said, these games have gone a little bit slower than we initially anticipated, so some plans have been made to follow up. So we're going to give you one more best out of 3 between these teams, and then we will have to call it a day. But we do hope that you have enjoyed the Mess Hall Brawl bootcamp so far, and we hope you enjoy as the action continues. Now, going after that best out of 3. Now we're about to look at, let me see, we're gonna do, there's gonna be a TheaBeasty versus Trump and Alias versus Amaz. Now we've been watching these people play all day. Amaz is currently 4-0, has not lost any of his best out of 3s with bubbles in the corner. Do you think that Alias and Flake, if they decide to go with their Britain list, have a chance there, or are they, being fed to the wolves? Admirable.
I think that this is a situation where if you're playing the stronger deck, you have a stronger chance to win. That's just kind of how it always boils down to. And I think the Britain deck has clearly demonstrated that it's pretty well established. It's got a good strategy. It's got opportunities. The countermeasures deck has not quite gotten there so far, and it feels like your hand's just getting a little bit clogged. Maybe a few too many countermeasures at that point, but I always appreciate the dedication to that kind of effect to it. So I'm just really looking forward to the matchup and seeing how it can happen. But the British deck, it certainly demonstrated that it is the stronger of the 2, I'd say, so far.
Yeah. But now that we are looking at the kind of final best out of 3s that are coming up, I want to get your predictions, Spoos, given our experience today and what we've observed. Trump versus Alias, who's going to take it?
I think. Oh, that's difficult actually, but I think it might be Trump, just because Scout is maybe a little bit more experienced in how to play different matchups, but who knows? If they bring that Brit control, they took a game away from Darkness and Tier, which is really an accomplishment. I think it's 50-50. Hard to predict.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I am putting you on the spot here, and I'm having you predict a very unpredictable matchup. But I mean, I think you're correct when you say that it kind of depends on if they bring the countermeasure deck or not. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we're going to be jumping into this next match. It's going to be Amaz versus Tia that we're going to be spectating first. If that finishes before Trump versus Alias, then we will finish spectating that. Of course, you are able to spectate any one of these matches that you want through the POV streams on each individual participant's channel /AliasV /TheaBeasty /TrumpSC and then /Amaz. All right, well, I mean, let's talk about today just a little bit. Who are you most impressed with so far out of our competitors, Admirable?
I mean, it's definitely just Amaz. Pretty much is what I expected, because he's just an experienced card game player. So if we're talking about specifically on strategy lines, it's Amaz. He's been very much just into a lot of different card games for quite some time now, and it's been showing like why he's going across the board and just kind of mopping things up in general. You know, it feels like every single time I've watched Amaz play a card game, he's just done very well at it. Not too much of a surprise to see, and it certainly is not too much of a surprise just, given what's been happening, throughout the day. So it's Amaz in this case. I think that it's exactly what I expect it to be, and I expect this to be a nice clean 5-0 from their side, because when you have the momentum going, you have the momentum going.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Would you say that his performance today has been amazing? I had to.
I was waiting for this to hold.
I had to.
I mean, that's the stem of that's the origin of it. It used to be the amazing Jason, and it eventually just got turned into Amaz.
What about you, Spoos? Who's impressed you the most here?
I think the person that impressed me the most was Thea. I mean, she has probably the best coach there, and I think they also practice a lot. And as we saw, they also brought a lot of different archetypes of deck. So we could assume that they also practice a lot. And I'm really amazed by how fast she got into the game, how fast she climbed to Field Marshal, and I think she really invested a lot of time, and that paid out for her, and that's cool to see. And also, she's a nice person. I watched some of her streams, and it's really enjoyable to watch her and to see what she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of these creators are, amazing in their own right, and Tia has definitely been putting in the hours. We've seen her streaming quite a bit in the cards category, and she said, something during one of the streams that really stuck with me was that, she felt like she could kind of take a break from her kind of professional lifestyle in other card games and just chill out for a little bit playing cards. It was something that was entertaining and fun, and that makes me really positive when I hear that. And if we can be that for you, if we can be you chilling out and taking a break from your hardcore grind, then we're happy to be there for you. But let's take a look at the standings as they are at the moment. If we look at that there, we see that Bubbles and Amaz are on the top with 4-0. Right on their heels, Darkness versus TheaBeasty. So they could tie them up in this final best out of 3. They could leave us with a tied score on the top, and then I'm pretty sure Amaz and Tia will have to settle the score outside of the Mess Hall Brawl bootcamp. But then on the bottom side of the scoreboard, we have Scout and TrumpSC, the self-declared evil villains of today, having brought super intense decks to play against. And then finally Flake and AliasV at 0-4, not finding the success with the countermeasure deck that they had hoped. The disguises sticking out a little bit too much, and they were unfortunately recognized and hammered it down there.
Yeah, mustache and hat were not enough to keep this under wraps.
No, unfortunate, but that's the way it is. I also I'm so impressed that people dressed up. Tia was just wearing like an army cap, and Darkness was dressed up, and Alias and Flake were dressed up. I'm so happy. Just joyous, momentous occasion here today.
Yeah, you're having fun. That's what we want to see.
Oh, it looks like Spoos is getting a little bit of a peek there. What is that above your left shoulder there, Spoos?
Hey.
An ages-old ridiculous headshot that I took.
Just checking you out, seeing how you're doing.
Just let me know the full image of that one on screen. My gosh.
A little Admirable. I mean, I wish Admirable would check me out like that, find you someone that looks at you the way Admirable looks at Spoos.
The pose is everything on that one.
All right, well, it looks like we are about to head on into game number 1 here between TheaBeasty and Amaz. So let's jump right into it. Tia rocking the gas mask canister, but Amaz has the coffee. Now, I just said the magic word. That means roll the giveaway and give out a cup of coffee. Ollie Fluppetta. Congratulations.
I'm loving to see it here. Alpine is going to be where we're kicking things off, and Amaz is going back to bolster. And so this is a fight for board. These are the matchups that I always end up getting most excited about. I feel like just because there's so many like critical mass and tension points that hit the game, and just you have to be paying close attention to every single thing that's happening, or things can quickly get out of hand.
Yeah, and Amaz with a big advantage here that he's having the Gebirgs Pioneers again here also, but Amaz, with being the starting player, he might just get rid of them. So I think it might be a better idea for Thea to play that 3rd Alpini Regiment, because this cannot be killed by the Greyhound. She's going for it. Amaz can also go with Flampanzer here, actually.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
The Gebirgs Pioneers enabling the Flampanzer.
Well, welcome back to Flampanzer being perhaps a 3 of index. Is this little 1/1 adding an extra credit line? Going first makes this so difficult to play your own 1-cost unit if you know your opponent's playing this kind of strategy, because there's so many different ways to mop it up.
Look at this. Amaz now on 4 credits because of the Gebirgs Pioneers, and is able to put the first Marines into the front line and start putting on the pressure. Also, with that Flampanzer that can move and attack within the same turn, waiting to back him up in the support line.
Golly, this is a tough spot. I feel like this is just deploy.
I think you probably do. You'd probably do the 3rd Alpini Regiment, then the 2nd Alpini Regiment, draw a card, establish that. And then wait to play the Gebirgs Pioneers until possibly next turn when you've traded some of the frontline pressure away. That's the line that I kind of am looking at the moment. But what do you think, Spoos?
It's whether this or you go with 136th just to have a 5-4 on the board to cover these Flampanzer and first Marines there. But yeah, that was probably the wrong order. Could have had a 4-4. Now none of these is... I mean, nah, you can argue. Now you have a 3-4 that can deal with this Flampanzer and survive. So I think overall this was the better line there.
I tend to like spreading out the stuff instead of trying to stack up on one big one. I tend to. The idea to me is that, like, for the Alpine units, it's keeping Alpine units in play feels like the important part of this. And so you're going to be losing an Alpine unit either way, so deliver the most pressure is kind of the idea. And this is exactly the draw I was about to mention for this, is that it deals the damage to your opposing unit. So if you spread this stuff out, it means that your opponent's attack gets wiped away on their front line. But you are still pretty far behind. Like, you have to figure out something that's going to be fighting for it here. But, you know, this is a start, at least.
I'm looking at the hand for Amaz. I'm seeing the pattern there and 2 1-cost units. We're also seeing the stars and stripes there and the frontline controlled, right? So if Tia and Darkness decide to go for something like a 136th and a 3rd Alpini Regiment, or, you know, the Gebirgs Pioneers, the entire backline can be wiped next turn. So I'm wondering if something like Nebelwerfer play, ping the first Marines, and then move the 3-4 up might be a good play. But you're still just giving your opponent a fairly easy trade on one of your Alpine units.
Yeah, I think it's just fine though, right? You just have to wipe out your opponent's resources in some capacity or another, or you could just ignore stars and stripes, which is what I tend to do. You know, it's like if your opponent has make him have it. If your opponent has the big card that hurts, you know what, so be it. But it really, the question of it isn't going to be should you make him have it. The question is which one of these is going to be stronger. And I think that forcing your opponent to spend credits in order to take this front line is really what Amaz's deck is about right now. It's about taking the front line. And so just force them to spend credits right now. Like, it is 2 cost on the credit side in order to be able to even access the front line. It's 4 credits to take the front line. That's a lot to spend to get to that point. So I think that moving forward here, just it feels like the right thing to do because you have this little 2/2 artillery in the back. Yeah, this is a wise choice here too. Don't overcommit your resources. Instead, just take that front line back, get your trade. And now force your opponent to have it. If you can hold your opponent to the back line, it means that Stars and Stripes becomes the real threat. This is just a strong, general, fundamental understanding of the game here from both sides so far. Because now your spot from TheaBeasty side is, well, get developed. And so now suddenly Stars and Stripes, it's starting to look like it's a threat. However, you do have a 6-5 in play, so it's not a huge threat, I would say.
I wanna hear from Twitch chat. Who are you rooting for in this matchup? Are you rooting for TheaBeasty here? Are you rooting for Amaz? Tell us who your favorite champion here is, and why. Because this match, it's gonna decide the tournament. You know, Tia and Darkness take this. It's gonna be tied at 4-1. If Amaz takes this, he gets to secure himself a flawless 5-0 day and really slot himself at the tippity top of the mountain here.
Yeah, Patton looking like a pretty strong play here as well. You get to put stuff in play and move it in the same regard, and that is a massive difference right now when you're looking at a 6-2 that's in the back line. You get to move a unit forward, and it becomes a 2-3 versus that 6-2. So now opposing Stars and Stripes would look like it's a pretty big threat.
Ooh, what did he?
But they can't have it.
Did you mess up?
Was this a mess up?
Better. I think it would have been better to kill that.
Well, you only had one credit
unit?
left. You had to pay one for Patton, and you had to pay one to move forward.
Yeah, okay. I forgot that this was 0 credits, so he did not have the credits actually. Yeah.
No, he deployed the Greyhound for his last the other Greyhound for his last credit.
He had Patton active.
But it was
Oh
0
yeah,
credits.
It was 0 credits.
That's what I also forgot. Yeah.
See, admirable here, schooling the two of us here on how.
Wow, I'm just remembering is all. This isn't school. It's just some memory. Just generic attention. Yeah, I think this is the right call here from Tia's side as well. You saw Stars and Stripes. You just got to get as much stuff in play as you can and try to fight for this. The 2-1, I'm not so convinced of because it's just offering a free trade on the other side. Ooh, and that Panzer Grenadier getting drawn as well. That's offering an even further potential value out of this little 2-3 Greyhound, being able to kill a 2-1 and a 6-2 and get a 2-2 in play.
I mean, it could possibly play it on to the Sherman as well and just do 10 to face, but
it feels like you're in an attrition battle. I'm not really sure. I think I could see both sides of it being active. You know, you don't even have to necessarily use the Panzer Grenadier here as well. I mean, you are using one of your key end the game elements in order to get value, and that just might not be a wise choice. Like the Sherman here is feeling like a pretty powerful effect.
Yeah. I would have liked to definitely see the Panzer Grenadiers come into play there, but I guess the upside of doing it like this is that the 22nd there isn't an Alpine unit, right? So you're not really leaving an additional buff on the field that you would otherwise want to remove. Now it's just a question of how they want to end their turn. Looks like it's with a whole host of frontline pressure.
Yeah, I think the frontline pressure here makes a lot of sense. The unit that Tia wants to kill the most is going to be this 2-1 on the right that's giving extra credit. And what that means is for Amaz's side is that they naturally have a US unit in front for that Sherman next turn as well. So this is like a next level tempo play that's being made in a spot like this, and one that you really, really have to hope you see.
Let's see if Darkness actually recognizes this, right? He might realize, oh, hey, we're actually leaving some danger on the field.
This is taking the value guaranteed. Guaranteed. Bet the farm.
Yeah, it looks like it. And there we go. There's going to be a U.S. unit for the draws available in the front line. Chocolate Boy is coming out as well, so the ability to kind of spam board is there for Amaz.
Yeah, the question of like thin the deck versus draw the cards. Ooh, Red Devil's getting drawn as well. I'm looking at this artillery unit. It probably needs to be wiped out. Artillery is pretty scary.
Yeah, especially this one, giving your infantry units the possibility to behave like a tank.
Yeah, not going to be wiping it out this turn.
Yeah, you could not, right?
Could have. Oh yeah, that's right. Why am I thinking the Sherman is blitz? That's ridiculous. God, just really tough spot here for Tea's side. Like, how do you actually, fight back into the situation? Just Amaz has started to get the Shermans going. And once the Shermans start rolling, it's just ridiculous.
So they probably kill the Sherman and go for Enigma here, or do you wait with your Enigma?
I think you need to take the cards now. I think like the fact that you're able to get 2 out of this, I think is appealing. The fact that you're able to get 3, whoo, gimme.
Draw 3 for 4 credits is not bad, right? You have to take it here.
Yeah. You're in an attrition battle at this moment. Both players at 20 still. It's clear that like tempo has been, you know, the fight in terms of trying to establish value. Take what you can get. Seeing this little 2-cost bomber in hand, the change on that one feels like it's pretty significant. Oh, and front line established means that this 2-3 can start putting stuff back. Big deal as Amaz is in hunt for bolster right now with that Panther G in hand.
Here we go. All he needs is a bolster now, and then he wins.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's a 6-5. It'll turn into a 9-8 at this point.
And he has the Panzer Grenadiers, which can give them Fury. So that is 18 damage alone from this unit.
And that's going into a 9-credit turn as well. So you get to play Sherman to hunt for 2 cards. You'd have to bolster for 4 more credits, and that leaves you with 2 left on the Panzer Grenadier to give Fury. Just a great setup here on Amaz's side. Spoils getting drawn.
Here has to look for a guard here. She's not
Find
finding
some,
it.
it's not there.
Yeah. What's the pick here?
The Alpine unit. You hope it works. This is an oh gosh, this isn't working moment.
That's what she needed earlier.
Here we go. 3 draws for Amaz to end the game. That's not it. Now the question, I guess, is it stronger to attempt to end the game, or is it stronger to just continue to battle for tempo? And he's going to elect for tempo.
I think
you just have strong value out of the 6-5. I mean, you could just move forward and attack. It's pretty big.
I think as long as you control the front line, you're fine with stretching this game out and not going for the kill.
Because the other thing here too is just attack. Like getting this in the front line at 7 attack means that it is threatening lethal on the following turn just because you have enough frontline presence.
Ooh, what?
And just shutting off the Alpine. How does the Alpine win if they don't have Alpine units? The whole deck's dedicated to Alpine units. You know, they don't really have ways to I'd say, counter pressure the board. It's get big quick.
Yeah, but he is having a lot of these Alpine units left in her hand, so she can just build a pretty big support line here. And that Fury on the 2-1 is not doing that much now.
Looks like what they want to drop the obese and then drop the 6th Alpine.
I think she's guarding here.
Yeah, you need a guard in play, I think. So a lot has been used by Amaz in order to establish this front line now. And that's a strong draw as well. Just a lot of resource available on Amaz's side. Like, there's no shortage of cards to spend. You know, the credits are the that is the capacity here at the moment. How many credits do you have? That's how much stuff you can do. Sherman coming in first.
Bolsters are just
too much.
high.
Yep, just going to be a full trade on that one. And now I'm a little bit worried about this artillery unit.
The 22nd additionally.
It's maybe not the 22nd because you have enough cards. Like maybe stuff in play is worth a little bit more. And again, credit lines seem to be part of the limit for this. So thin out the deck with that last remaining card. You just don't want to... It feels like you're feeding it to artillery almost.
Yeah, but there's so many targets. I mean, that each can only attack once. So the more units, the better, I think. I think I would have still preferred the 22nd there just to get one additional draw. Maybe find your bolster here.
You know, the full line of value on Tia's side. Don't blame her. Big artillery that's in play.
4-5.
It's gonna get traded out by the Sherman. Gets +1 when it moves into the front line. Unfortunately.
Wow,
and
and
then
the Panzer.
99th.
It's a 35T drone as well. He's able to fight on the board. I mean, Amaz is just winning on the attrition battle side. Like, you know, Tia's just running out of cards. Yeah, not accepting that the artillery wants to have a free attack. Wipes out another Alpine unit. Yeah, just keep the Alpines at bay, and that feels like a way for this deck to win. And now suddenly with no artillery, you saw that your opponent didn't have a spot removal. Get this card draw going.
The only thing that could help you is Leopold. That's the only card I see Thea coming back.
Well, that's not a Leopold.
I'm not even sure if they have that in deck.
We did see it earlier in the day, but
Yeah.
you know, players have been allowed to modify their stuff.
Yeah, this is not set deck list. This is not open deck list. So players are allowed to change as they want during the day. But yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. You know, nothing but a Leopold is gonna salvage this situation. It doesn't matter if you get those extra couple of credits from Nashub. You have nothing to spend them on.
Getting
Just
swarmed.
imagine Thea
Oh.
having root out the enemy in her deck.
Oh my god.
Oh god, strategic.
That's a massive draw. And I think it's starting to get FaceTime. Maybe not, though. I mean, you've continued to check your opposing Alpine units. Do you need to kind of follow through on that strategy if you've committed to this? The question is 3 damage and move forward, or is it M4A1? Yeah, you left this 2-1 vulnerable. I'm pushing the 2-1 forward as well. Just feels like you're establishing so much pressure. Like you're threatening lethal at that point. You're moving a 3-1 forward. You're attacking for 3.
Another Sherman.
2 draws. No Leopold yet.
This is not looking good.
Now it's one more turn for the Leopold. It's pretty much down to that final draw.
But this is also the case, you know, when you got darkness in your corner, you will not surrender until the game is over. He knows that there is still a chance to pull that Leopold off the top. And if they do peel it off the top, they are able to convert this, you know, completely put this game on its head.
4A1.
There's the bolster finally.
Light Panzer's coming down. Wiping out the Alpine unit. This is 6 damage face and move forward. It's do or die. Is it Leopold?
Has to be now. What do the gods give?
Oh, that's the wrong Leopold.
That's the wrong Leopold.
That's sending only 1 unit back.
Yeah.
That's going to be it. It's going to be Amaz taking game number 1 here and being 1 win away from a perfect clean sweep here today.
Amazing.
Pretty strong. Just kind of demonstrating the power of Sherman being able to continuously provide you know, card generation as well as the 2-1. It's going to be drawing you a card as long as you control the front line, and then the power that Bolster can deliver by having these backline tanks. You know, Sherman is not a joke. It's already a strong unit on its own, but when that's able to turn into a 0 operation cost 6/6 that can move and attack in the same turn, that is a massive momentum swing that can take place on the back of refueling your hand. And so battling for the front line kind of, you know, shown as like a fundamental demonstration from this US deck. I think it's one of the most powerful things you can be doing is battling for front line. And this deck is really demonstrating its potential to rain on your opponent's day if you have any sort of reasonable draw whatsoever.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And what I like about this is I spoke to Bubbles before the stream and I asked him what strategies are you likely to bring, and they started off by, you know, working with Alpine, but then they kind of went into like, oh, you know what, Alpine isn't super fun to play, it isn't super fun to watch, so let's see if we find something else. And then they saw the Bolster the Ranks bundle that was in the store, and Amaz asked like, hey, what's that? And Bubbles built a Bolster the Ranks deck, and kind of like the playstyle just clicked. And that's what I really love to hear, is that Amaz was just like, wow, I mean, I really enjoy playing this. This feels really natural to me to kind of work with these sizes in this deck, and we're seeing that pan out for them by just pretty much going undefeated throughout the day.
Pretty tough to get past that point. I mean, my gosh, Sherman's just such a powerful card.
Yeah.
4 crit, 4/4 tank, draws 2 cards. If you have the front line with the US unit, it's just tough to make a unit that's like stronger than that without making the unit that's just like, okay, this is ridiculous. Where do you scale that one from? I feel like we reached the peak real quick where it's like acceptable. No, I mean, you could make this card and it doesn't ruin the format, and it's still very powerful and likely will be for the existence of the game.
I mean, it's a strong card, right? Definitely. But I mean, I think Spoos could definitely attest to that as well. Having played the game for so long, sometimes you end up sitting on 3 Shermans in your hand, no way to get the front line, and they just feel really, really bad. You put them down, you're just like, ugh. And then they get traded out. You don't even get the proper value. Like they can get you in a really, really tough spot where running an M4A1, for instance, could help you out of that spot just because of the 5 HP. So they come with their advantages and their disadvantages, but I think you're absolutely correct. They are extremely, extremely strong, and with some new additional tools for the US. Oh, I spectated the wrong hand there. With some additional tools for the US to kind of contest the front line, I think we're going to see Sherman get more play. What do you think?
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's not completely broken. It is very strong in several US decks, but not too strong overall. So it's not an auto include in all US decks. But yeah, as Admiral mentioned, it's really, really powerful in some situations and really, really hard for your opponents to deal with this. Because it's not just drawing you 2 cards for 4 credits, it's also having a 4/4 body. And these 2 very nice things combined can make this card really, really strong.
All right, guys, we are heading into what could possibly be the final game here today. If Amaz manages to snatch this victory. Tia and Darkness, however, fighting to reverse sweep this series to tie up the standings at the top, putting themselves on equal footing with bragging rights with Amaz and Bubbles.
It's just resistance again from Amaz here. Resistance and that experimental flight self-discard deck from Tia and Darkness.
Facing an opposing bolster as well. Is this something they're anticipating?
Oh, that would be a storyline for the ages. If Amaz gets cut down by a counter bolster the ranks deck. We played it all day, dominated with it, but then just gets countered with it. That would be great. Viva La Resistance coming out.
Look at these experimental flights, really helpful to get rid of these resistance cards too.
You know what? I'm thinking bolster's just looking pretty good here. This is a 4-turn clock.
Oh, that's actually a great point. It's actually
extra things in play. Those look pretty good too, though.
I mean, and you like with this line, you get to also get rid of the resistance card because you know that there's going to be an arming the resistance coming up, and what that does is it adds a card to your hand, then doubles the amount of the cards in hand, and then doubles their cost. So it is a really, really punishing card if you do not get rid of those resistance cards early.
I'm not sure how many bolts of the ranks they have in their deck, but probably they keep it for the Shiden later, a 4/4 fighter with Blitz that has Fury. And if you do the bolster on this, you can do 14 damage, turn 9, which is pretty insane. So I think the game plan for Tia here is to set up these 14 health on the enemy HQ and then hope for the Shiden turn 9.
It's a really nice top deck.
Wow, what an interesting little spot here as well, too. Where like, if Amaz goes for the 3/1 here on the takedown, what that means is if your opponent draws a bombing raid, they don't get to attack your headquarter as well. So going for the stronger of the 2 units here, I think actually yielded a worse outcome for the situation in terms of its possibility. Pretty unique spot.
I mean,
I
look,
think you don't want to use the bombing rate here, though. It feels like maybe this privateer is looking pretty strong.
yeah, because you're also sitting on answers like the second raiding brigade, right? That's just waiting there. I mean, that Sentai is not going to get buffed. You can reclaim that plane whenever you want.
True story. Spoos, who do you think has the edge here? This is a pretty unique spot in the game, and it looks like neither player has really established their take on how they want to take advantage of the game yet.
Yeah, tough spot. I mean, I think both sides can win this depending on the draws that might come in the future here, but also Amaz is having a lot of potential healing, which might make the OTK that Tier is planning here a little bit harder to pull off, actually. So I think we have to see how this battle develops here, and then we might see some tendencies who's winning this. So far, I think both sides can win this. But also, Amaz is not having that much left here. She was having arming the resistance and a long range recon, which can give him a lot of heal. Oh, that was actually smart. If he goes into this now, bomber is dying.
Oh,
This is also dying. That's a nice combo. Oh, I like it a lot.
wow! And that pushes 4 damage as well. That is a massive swing. I didn't see that little additional pickoff that was taking place. Like that just didn't click in my head. And so when I see that, holy smokes, that's big. That is potential game-winning spot there.
Yeah, unfortunately, they can only deal 3 damage to all of them, so that privateer will survive a desperate measures siren combo. And they also don't have any other answer in hand for that privateer, so might just be another 7 damage to face here.
Did get this kind of stuff to turn a little bit though. You know, you didn't really do much. You need the resources to get to a further spot in the game.
Yeah, I think it was the only line that they could have done.
Oh boy, that's a recognition. Yeah, that's a recognition of the fact that your opponent's trying to set up some AOE.
It's also a lethal setup here.
Yeah, Tia really turning on the pressure here over the past couple of rounds. And I'm looking over into what is happening on the Trump Alias series. Right now, Trump and Scout are playing a retaliation German deck that is entirely order based and attempts to bait your opponent into attacking your HQ with a really high attack value and returning a whole lot of damage. But Alias just played perfectly around it. So Alias taking the lead in that series.
Yep, desperate measures time. That's indeed what it is.
Oh, Alias and Alias and Flake 2-0'd Scout and Trump, so they got the first victory of the day.
Yay! Congrats.
Congratulations. And congratulations to Scout and Trump, who stayed true to their identity and played meme decks throughout the entire day. No pivot.
Well, this is certainly no meme deck here. This is a lot of damage that's coming across from these bombers. Down to 5 is Amaz, and it looks like they need some serious help to climb out of this.
I think it's Pika time here. The only way they don't die here. Let's see what Amaz is drawing. But if he's not finding anything else, so this guy cannot attack HQ.
Oh, is he going to take the front line? Or are they going to take the front line with it? Yeah.
Ooh.
20 war, not what you wanted off the top there.
So it has to be a kicker.
That kind of gets wiped out, right? Because of this little 2-1.
Yeah, that 2-1 will make the difference in the end. Bombing rate plus the 2-1 means.
So do you have to play the N1K instead? Oh, you don't have the credits to operate it.
Yeah.
Wait a second. It's still. Oh yeah, it's just Every single angle gets wiped out here.
I definitely think you have to play the Kika just to hope.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, we can see the bombing rate is all.
Yeah.
Wow. We're going to game 3.
Yeah, and now Amaz prays. 2-0 on the other side. And game 3 here. And game 3 for all the marbles, right? You know, keep bringing it up, but Tia and Darkness are fighting for a tied first.
It's a pretty clean little spot here. Bombing rate kind of showing why it's such a strong card. The fact that it's able to damage everything, such a powerful effect.
Ooh, that privateer, MVP of this match, huh?
Oh, it really is. Man, I'm seeing so much of that privateer.
It's like 18 damage the thing delivered. My goodness. It's hard to beat that. Whenever one single card is able to establish about 18 points of damage, it's pretty tough to overlook that. Like, how could we have dealt with this a little bit better? But that's part of the bolster of the ranks too. You know, I had to pair with that in order to, I think, to be such a powerful thing. Otherwise, it costs 2 credits, you know, per shot that it's going to fire. And so, you know, being able to bolster that, turn it into a 6/6, it lives through the AOE, just keeps cranking the entire time. Tough to beat a 6/6 that requires 0 operation cost when you're not able to even touch the front line because your deck's not built that way.
Yeah, I mean that's the true strength of bolster ranks, right? I mean, you sometimes overlook how much of a difference it can be to just have something that has 0 operation cost. It just
Powerful
opens
effect
up,
to have.
yeah, I mean, it just opens up your ability to develop the board so much more because you don't have to worry about spending all your credits operating your units.
Yeah, it just feels like it's breaking the rules of the game.
It
Every single time my opponent has one of the 0 operation cost units out, I start panicking. Spoos, do you feel that way ever when your opponent just has like a 0 operation cost? You're like, oh, geez, that's not good for me.
Yeah, especially when it's a 6/6 bomber that has 1 heavy armor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Oh, you need to push 7 damage through on me, buddy. Like,
My opponent's gonna be like a 1/2, and I'm like, I gotta get rid of that thing.
you would have freaked out then back in the kind of Jagro Alpine decks, right? Just run the.
I did.
34th.
Oh yeah, no. Anytime my opponent plays anything with 0 operation costs, like the bicycle unit with the Blitz Fury.
Yeah.
Oh, that thing sends me into a full state of panic. I'm like, immediately stop all plans, destroy this unit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar. But I think you know, I think kind of what develops over time as you play more and more cards is you develop this comfort on how you use the front line. And I don't know, have you felt that kind of the more you play cards, Admirable? Like, what are the areas of cards that you feel like you're improving in as you play more of the game?
For me, it's just been the deck building process, you know, kind of understanding like how the front line is dictating the pace of the game. It's helped me identify like what cards are powerful and why and when. And that was one of probably the most difficult things for me to really understand was just how much difference does the front line actually make? The answer is a lot, but it always depends on the situation. Like, it's not always going to work. You know, the plan that you want to have, it's not always going to function in its full form, the plan you want to have. But sometimes you can do some crazy stuff by simply clogging up the front line or simply ignoring the front line for a little bit and waiting for the right timing of it. It's a very unique aspect of the game because it's one of the few times that you're going to have a board state in a game that you both share. But one of you takes from the other, and that's to me like really the big effect of it is that one of you has taken it from the other, and it's a very just unique experience.
Yeah. Now I do want to thank AliasV and Flake and Trump and Scout for their participation. Now that their games have ended, I believe they're going to be ending their streams, and that we just got a raid here from Alias over onto the channel. Thank you so much for your participation today, and welcome to every member of the community that is stuck with you and is going to join us here for the final match of today. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege having you be a part of this, and all of you be a part of this. So we're just waiting for Tia to pick a deck. There's a whole lot of discussions going on because this one is a true finals match. Will Amaz take the victory, or will Tia and Darkness fight back? They're going really deep on the theory crafting on this one, and we're loading on into the game just before the first cards get played. Admirable, starting with you, who's going to win this?
Well, I'm looking at the aggressive deck from Japan, and I'm looking at also the rerun of the Japanese order deck on Amaz's side. And my opinion on this one is that this Japanese order deck is really well built to handle decks that are trying to do some crazy stuff, and not necessarily well built for decks that are trying to, just kind of play the game, I'd say, in a normal fashion. So I'm a little bit worried here for Amaz's side, as this deck, what they're playing against right now is very much ignoring hand size because they have a lot of ramp cards in the deck, and that always worries me when I'm playing against Resistance.
And as we welcome everybody from Trump's channel that just rated us, thank you so much for sticking with us, and welcome to the finals match of today, Amaz versus TheaBeasty, 1-1. This one is for the finals. Over to you, Spoos. Who do you think is going to take this?
Yeah, I have to agree with Admiral. Thea's having the matchup here, I guess. She's having a lot of guard units, so Amaz fighters probably not going anywhere then into these and not going to the HQ. And yeah, I think that's that fact speaking for Thea and Darkness here to win that series.
Well, that's going to be an interesting one. I also want to point out one significant difference. It is coffee versus rice. So
I mean, it's going to win, Ollie. Coffee or the rice?
You got to ask yourself, right? I mean, for me, this game looks like you need a short burst of energy that the caffeine provides, but the rice is definitely more sustainable energy in the long run. So who knows? We're at the end of a long day here. Maybe Amaz is going to put those rice to good use, whereas Tia might be crashing from all his coffee.
Excellent. You love to hear it. I'm looking at Blackwatch here, Spoos. Blackwatch feels like it's one of the most threatening cards I can imagine in this matchup, just because Amaz's deck is, it's a Japanese order deck. It's increased the cost of all the orders in the opposing hand.
Yeah, I think you always Blackwatch here. Blackwatch, and Blackwatch slows Amaz deck down a lot, but looks like she's probably waiting for better spot here. Interesting. Probably waiting for not sure what, going into the research there. Oh, you could also go. Maybe she's going into Bletchley Park. That can be a line here.
Just going for the Bletchley and then figuring out a way to use the orders on the Blackwatch. Trying to manipulate things. Timing of Blackwatch also could be very important.
Could be. I mean, it's definitely how much credit damage is it doing if it gets played right now? It's 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, that's actually sick. If you play take the initiative and then play a Blackwatch, you're putting it at 6 credits. That is absolutely bricking a card in the hand here for Amaz and Bubbles.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is a pretty tough spot to be in here. As soon as you see that Blackwatch card, I imagine things start to get a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Really starts clogging the hand.
And yeah, they kind of have to spend that Imperial Decree just to free up space in their hand. And, that could come back and haunt them, because the Imperial Decrees can be extremely crucial in beefing up some orders that you need to clear the board throughout the game.
Yeah, also look at that credit advantage here. 10 credits versus 5. I mean, holy. It looks like an unfair battle here. So many options here. You can just...
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Just so many options. It's like every angle. I'm tough. I'm trying to think of like a play that's just like intentionally bad that actually hurts you, and even that seems like kind of tough to find. It's like draw 4. That's like the only play you have right now that looks like it's terrible. Everything else looks like it's viable in some capacity.
She's going. Oh, maybe she's also going for active sonar, making all of the opponent's cards 3 more expensive.
Playing a doubting system here as well, and when you play Blackwatch, that means all of your opponent's orders pretty much get stopped by this doubting system.
Yeah, it's such a nice combination, that Blackwatch together with doubting. Look at this.
Yeah, massive.
Ooh.
It's one of the few situations where doubting is actually just better than Ultra because your opponent can't counter your Ultra with a 1-cost card.
And that active sonar means basically that Amaz can not really
Never use the
play
hand, yeah.
next
This
turn.
is very strong matchup demonstration knowledge here. Curious how much Coach Bubbles is helping out on this one, because I know if there's one player who I expect to know to go for this sonar here, it's Bubbles.
Ouch.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look,
Yeah, Amaz's reaction.
Wow, at this point, you really just need to start getting these things out of your hand. You know, just
The smile
play
on Tea's side as well, also justified in a situation like this. Like, Spoos, the first time that active sonar, you either played it or had it played against you, I imagine you just had to feel like, how can your opponent win?
I mean, for me personally, I don't have any active sonar against me that has really hurt me. But when I look at Amaz here, I think that's the worst terrible situation you could run into. Hidden by a black watch, hidden by an active sonar.
Here you
look
go.
at this, he
Have your
could
take
play
initiative
3
back.
cards last turn. Oh my god.
Yeah, let's just get some stuff active as well. This is this massive threat. 15 credit line on Tea's side.
All his game plan is ruined. He cannot play the kicker and blitz to the face because he needs 13 credits operation cost for this. The phony war 10 credits. Ammunition 10 credits.
Yeah, let's
My
defend for 8.
oh, that is so sad.
to kill a 1-3.
Do you remember? It was one tournament, Spoos, where somebody bounced a black watch like 3 times, and I think we saw like a 13 or 12 credit bloody sickle or something like that. It was something stupid. It was like a 1 credit order.
Lancaster.
I mean, we're
Lancaster
close
gets
to-
found. There's an Ultra in hand.
Yeah,
This is just such a big advantage on Tea's side. Like, it is going to be really tough for Amaz to even claw back into a chance in this one. I mean, I'm not saying we don't have a game here still, but my gosh, there is so much going on. And with a 16 credit line, you're able to play Lancaster and attempt to protect it.
Yep. I mean, and now we're seeing like the true value that you can get out of ramp if you get it off in time, right? I mean, there's definitely cases where Thea just draws none of her ramp and is still sitting on 9 credits, but she did draw it. She was able to use it, and now her options are just so much more than Amaz has. Also, if you count the fact that she just bricked that entire hand.
Hey, I don't put cards in my deck to not draw them. I'll put it that way.
All right,
Range recon. Giving you some time. I mean, time is definitely helpful in a situation like this. I mean, Amaz definitely needs time.
Still got 2 defendant depths there as well, so you're able to actually deal with the board state pretty okay. Get rid of those C4th.
I think I would have preferred to get rid of that honey, maybe? Because you want to keep your enemy at low HP.
I was thinking about the worry of like Rule Britannia.
Yeah, I mean...
Sure. There's so many things to worry about here, and this is just the biggest worry of all.
Yeah. Keeps brick in the hand. Let's take a close look at Amaz's face as his credit counter just keeps going. Oh my god, I could lip read the reaction.
The Ultra comes into play as well, and the order here that Thea has done this, which is you play the Ultra and then you start using the rest of your units, it's a little bit more masking of the Ultra at that point. Yeah. Because there's just not as much time. So you use this last credit line and then you end your turn.
And now it's tough because what Amaz has to do is he has to have kind of the presence of mind to take initiative before he uses defendant depth to take out that Lancaster. If he does not, I think this game is over. Another line is play the Sendai.
There's the take.
They do it perfect.
Rule Britannia gets drawn. Oh, that's not good. That is not good for Amaz. This line, the units in play are about to get like a ton of them. It's going to be very difficult to answer. And with this big of a credit line, Thea has all the time in the world to set up this Rule Britannia and deliver a lethal blow. Yeah.
I mean, don't you just throw out like I guess you have to play around to the last man. That could get drawn now. I mean, obviously Tia doesn't know that she hasn't bricked it, so potentially you could go crazy and not play around it. But man,
I'm going crazy. Your opponent has 2 total cards that this could have been. It's the one on the far right now, and the next card they draw. If they don't draw, wipe the board for 10 credits, we're looking at game over. Yeah, much as you can.
That's going to be what? A 7-7, a 6-6, a 9-9, a 5-5, and a 3-3.
It hasn't been drawn, Amaz. They have a draw to get it here. And it's not it.
To the last man. Just imagine. Next turn. I'm waiting for it.
I feel like multiple times today we have seen players needing to draw the exact card or things getting wiped. It's either wiping the board and keeping the game going, or it's not wiping the board and then, getting wiped up instead.
I think it's Siren into Phony War here, just to increase the chances for... Oh no, he's going kicker. Ooh, I think I would have looked for that to the last man. It's his only chance, I guess.
Oh my god, what a huge Rule of Britannia that comes in there. The fresh sea air.
It does protect from the bomber. So this does like
Sexton. Boom.
Sure, but I think you're just worried about buying time and just getting stuff out of your hand.
Yeah.
Like, oh geez. It just everything feels bad. It doesn't matter what happened here. It all felt like Amaz's plays were bad. If it's not to the last man being drawn, it looks like a bad play. And so here we go. Last draw. Not it.
Oh.
That's not going to do it.
Wait, no, you can't phony for it. Is there any way to get there whatsoever? Can you even come close?
Only a naval operation could delay his fate here.
Desperate Measure? That's giving you Desperate Measures for 3 extra damage right now?
No, he also played an Imperial Decree, so it's going to be a 4 damage. Desperate Measures, I believe.
Good enough.
Yeah, it's not near enough. Strong attempt.
You know what he needed? He needed that other Imperial Decree that they had to play to manage hand size earlier. And just like that, Tia and Darkness tie us up in the final best out of 3, and Amaz and Bubbles have to share the first place spot on the podium.
Hey, I'll take it. It's still just a nice performance over the day, and we got to see some pretty strong demonstration of like just all the cool different aspects of cards. Like there's plenty of meme decks, there's plenty of strong tournament style decks, and I think there's still just plenty of room for refinement and exploration in the game as well. This is one of the things that I have liked so much about cards is it feels like every single deck is building a platform and then a way to take advantage of the platform base that you have built. There's plenty of ways it feels like to counter everything. There's plenty of ways to refine those strategies and change them up. There's lots of tech choices. Just everything in this game feels like it has like a unique experience to me, and the cards are just powerful. They're not so powerful that I feel like, oh, all these cards need to be nerfed. They're just powerful enough where I'm like, dang, I want to play with all these cards. And that's what I'm going around the horde doing. And right now is the perfect time to do that. Double XP weekend that's taking place here. Start getting those progression lines unlocked and start building out a collection for me. Because my gosh, it's just fantastic. And I just love sitting down and playing this game. I'll sit down for a couple hours at a time and just jam some powerful decks. There's just almost every deck you build is going to have some level of power to it that you just didn't realize it had.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, before we sign off, let's take a look at the final standings here today. We have a fairly clear-cut leaderboard here with Darkness and TheaBeasty and Bubbles and Amaz coming in at 4-1 each. Scout and Trump and Flake and Alias 1-4 on the other side, bringing the Mimir decks reaping what they sowed in that regard. Definitely, we're facing some more meta-oriented decks from Tia and Amaz. But congratulations to all the participants. Everybody did absolutely fantastic, and I am beyond proud and excited to just have had this event happen. And I'm so happy to see the large influx of new players that we've seen around this event, and we do truly hope that you find a good home in cards. But now, before we finally sign off, any last words to leave us with here, Admirable? Any messages to the community?
Just thank you everyone for joining us this weekend here. This is just a lot of fun. For all the for all the card stuff I've done so far, it's always been tournament play. And so just kind of sitting down and having an exhibition where I get to, sit down with my friends and just talk about the game and enjoy what we're watching here. That's a nice one to have, because after 7 years of casting card games now, it's like maybe 3 total events I've had that are related to this notion. It's just a nice, relaxing spot to be. And just thank you everyone for joining us. And I'm serious, get in there and try it out, because this for me in terms of my draft queue, this is my #1 draft queue spot. Is this game right here, Cards.
All right, what about you, Spoos? Any final words?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for watching, and I really enjoyed this. And if anyone of the new players is having questions, just check out all the card streamers. This community in general is very, very helpful, and especially this guy behind me here. He's the best of all of them. And yeah, really looking forward to do this maybe again in the near future. And yeah, really nice evening, and thanks for having me.
Oh, it was absolutely our pleasure, as well as it was our pleasure to welcome all of the creators and the coaches into this event here today. I am, beyond blown away with the kind of care and effort that all of these creators put into joining this tournament. So I want to thank them all so much for being a part of this, and to their communities for being a part of this as well. None of this would be possible without you. We will continue onwards and upwards with Cards, providing new updates, new content, of course, more tournaments. We just have the World Championship right around the corner with the second qualifier ongoing, followed by the knockout stage, and then, of course, the live grand finals in Iceland in the beginning of December. So make sure to stay up to date with that. In the interim, we're also going to have a couple more OCCs and a Cards Open. So if you are into tournament play, you've definitely found the right place. But for today, thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.